Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Love, Money, and Rock and Roll. We're on the Spirited Away train, and we're gonna have another good time today. I don't know, last time, it feels like all of my loves has left me. Himitsu's gone, Catherine's, elsewhere, Kagome's elsewhere. Barely even seen Ellie. Where did Ellie get to, huh? But yeah, today we're gonna keep on going. Maybe there'll be some good thing that happens at the very end. I don't know. All that matters is I'm on this train, and that's all I need in life right now. And hey, Geek and Rat, you're first. You did it. Yay. How you doing today? Hope your Valentine's Day yesterday was good. Once in the station, I was hit with a cold sweat. The unexpected courage I had when talking to Irina evaporated at once, leaving behind only fear and slight panic. Of course, I had a choice. I could remain silent, agreed, made peace with it, and forgotten. Hey, Mafia babe! You're here too. What's up? How you doing? You're doing good? Awesome. Thank goodness, Geek and Rat. I'm glad you are good. I decided to take a risk. Put everything I had at stake, my own life. What did you miss? Train. You missed the train. All the girls have left, I think, and I'm on the train all alone now. And that's pretty much what you missed so far. The stakes were this high because the KGB clearly wasn't going to tolerate such deception. Actually, I didn't have any documents. I would even have been able to say anything else if Irina had decided to question me further. But those ballistic missiles has turned out to be enough for her. God, what had my father been doing, really? Selling Soviet research to the West, or in our case, the East? I couldn't blame him. I just had no right to do that. At the same time, I wasn't feeling bad for the USSR or proud of Japan. Struggling with geometry homework? Oh no, not geometry homework. What's the first question? Maybe I can help you out. Maybe I can, Mafia babe. I can only think of Himitsu. Oh, I'm off the train. Aww. Approaching my home, I saw Ryunosuke's car parked in the yard. What was I supposed to do now? Run? A desperate thought crossed my mind. With Himitsu gone, nothing was keeping me here. I could throw my winter clothes, socks, pants in a bag, and ride into the sunset, maybe to Osaka or Fukuoka. Osaka is a city in the Kansai region of Honshu. It is the third most populous city in Japan. Fukuoka is a port city built along the shores of Hakata Bay, southwest of Japan. That would be cool. In a port city? I wouldn't mind living in a port city. I could find a job there, rent a 6 tatami flat, settle down, meet a girl. Something stung under my left shoulder blade. I was standing there and looking at Ryunosuke's car, a beat-up sedan that must have served him for 2 decades now. Were Japanese intelligence officers really paid so little? Suddenly, the front door of their house opened, and Himitsu's father himself walked out. He noticed me immediately, stepped for a moment, then walked toward me with a firm gait. Tan 32 equals x/8. Well, good luck, Mafia babe. I wish you luck with your geometry homework. You can do it. I believe in ya. Oh, God. I don't even know what the question is. Those are just letters and words to me and symbols. Yeah, good luck. You can do it. Are you waiting for someone, Nikolai? He asked in an impassive voice. No, just daydreaming. I drawled, looking at him right in the eye, smirked, and entered my yard. When I closed the door behind me, the sound of the car engine reached me from outside. Ryunosuke's son had left. He was probably pleased with himself for having solved the Anokin problem so deftly. People like him don't care about others' opinions or collateral damage. I was sure he didn't give a damn what Himitsu was feeling, and he was sure he knew what was better for her. Just a couple hours earlier, I also thought I knew that she would be better off without me. But what did Himitsu herself think? I was making the same mistake again and again, deciding for other people. I definitely knew Himitsu would be better off without me. I definitely knew that she didn't want to see me. I definitely knew. But maybe it'd be easier to ask her. Even if after that I would need to leave Tokyo forever and work as a sailor on a fishing vessel, then at least I would be sure I'd done everything I could. Hence I'd already started playing hero by lying to a KGB agent. Why couldn't I make a Japanese intelligence officer my enemy too? I counted the money in my wallet, packed a bag with a change of clothes, put on my jacket, and went to the railway station. I seriously couldn't afford a taxi this time. You could write an entire book about the Japanese railway system. The metro, the commission trains, the Shinkansen, known as English as the bullet train. The bullet train! The answer is 5. No, it's not. I think it's S/5/2. That's the real answer, Mafia Babe. Ha 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 ha. But, well done. You did it. Congrats. You could get wherever you wanted to in the least possible time. After reaching Shinjuku, I got off the train and stopped perplexed. Hundreds of entrances and exits, dozens of railways and platforms, thousands of people walking around. The whole human anthill was pressing down on me without a chance to join in. I had only been here twice before and never could understand how Japanese people were able to orient themselves in this labyrinth of concrete, steel, and glass. I should check the volume, by the way. Alright, it's normal. We good. We good, right, guys? Are you good? Am I good? As a foreigner, I felt that at some point Japanese engineers had completely lost their connection to reality and sacrificed common sense itself to functionality. It's a challenge to figure out Tokyo's transportation system without a college degree. Of course, no one had demanded them to erect towering memorials to the fathers of communism like their Soviet colleagues did with designing Moscow's underground system. I think we good. I think we are too. Hehe. To me, Shinjuku looked like a 100-year-old turtle with its shell covered in blossom-wing wildflowers. One layer lay atop another, lines connecting to each other, ending, starting. And the passages. Endless passages, stairs, and escalators going up and down. Was it really necessary? And how was this different from socialism, ensuring convenience for many at the price of many inconveniences for each individual? It must have taken me no less than 3 hours before I managed to figure out which line I needed to take, bought the ticket, and boarded the train. Oh, there's me. Evening was drawing near, and apart from me, the train car was only occupied by a young mother with a little girl of 4 years old or so. God, she looked like a big brat. The girl was constantly whining, stomping her feet. Oh well, I was joking when I said that. She actually is a brat. Jumping on her seat and shouting so loudly that my head started to hurt. I punched her in the face. Himitsu had always said that she loved children, but at that moment, I couldn't even imagine that one day you would have a similar chaos generator of our own. Oh no! I know, right? We would have, I muttered and smirked. Mommy, look at this weird uncle! The girl shouted immediately. Oh, please calm down. I'm very sorry. She blushed heavily and lowered her head in apology. I gave a slight smile in response and kept looking out the window. This train was going to the capital of the neighboring prefecture, a relatively small distance by Japanese standards, so it was stopping at every station on its way. We had long left Tokyo and were slowly passing through small rural stations, one after another. In the distance, a road mirrored the train tracks, the one I had used a week ago to get to Himitsu's village. It's surprising how the same landscape looked completely different from the car's windows and the trains. Maybe it was because of the speed. Unremarkable settlements were slowly passing by, sleepy and deserted. Apparently Saturday evening wasn't the most popular time for traveling. Conductors passed through the car occasionally, and vendors pushed their merrily jangling trolleys with food and beverages. A female vendor of formidable size gave me a pack of peanuts and a bottle of water, and a friendly, the kind only such corpulent saleswoman can, smile, taking my money. The unruly girl forced her mom to buy her ice cream, then a chocolate bar. I genuinely felt sorry for the poor young woman. She looked like she could be 17 or 18, but I figured that she must have been 5 to 7 years older. In any case, she would have had to have had the child when she was 20, and I was going to be 20 in 2 years. Entertaining arithmetic. When the train slowly When the train slowly, as if didn't really want to, stopped, the train stopped at the station I needed. The entire sky was covered with stars, as if somebody spilled sugar onto a black cloth. Now you want ice cream? Oh no. Now will you act like the 4-year-old girl, Mafia Babe, and say, I want ice cream! I want ice cream! Actually, aren't you at school now? I don't think you can get ice cream right now. Or maybe you can. If you can, then lucky. I never had ice cream at my school. What the heck? Yes, you will? Awesome. I should do that too. I should do that more often. How brightly they were shining here, in the countryside, without the light pollution of Tokyo. It felt as if I'd found myself in a totally different world. I waved goodbye to the capricious girl and mentally wished her mom patience. The girl stuck her tongue out at me and in response made a grimace. She made grimace? What the heck? Your school has no ice cream? Aw, lame. But then again, neither did mine, so we have the same school pretty much. Didn't think I'd be back here so soon. I sighed and walked out of the station. Just like many cities in the Soviet Union were built around factories and enterprises, numerous Japanese cities were built around hot springs. Thousands of such sleepy towns scattered across the entire country exist solely because of domestic tourism. Onsens aren't the most popular entertainment among foreigners. Onsen are a country's hot springs, and the bathing facilities and traditional inns around them. Onsens come in many types and shapes, including outdoor and indoor baths. I bet that would be nice. Ryunosuke-san had to be in Tokyo, and more importantly, he seemed confident I had no idea where Himitsu was, so I had a real chance to talk to her. He couldn't have set up guards for his daughter, after all, although I could expect anything from this man. Despite everything, I was full of determination and confidently walked to the house of Himitsu's grandma. A huge crescent was hanging in the sky, courteously illuminating the path together with brightly shining stars. Each of these stars were in fact another sun, just like ours or maybe 100 times brighter, and the inhabitants of other planets could be looking up into their violet or green sky, seeing the dim spark of our sun as it was flying at incredible speeds across the emptiness of a far corner of the galaxy, pulling our Earth along. I doubted they were troubled by the same things I was, and most likely their biochemistry wasn't carbon-based, so they physically couldn't experience love. Was I thus acknowledging that love is merely a chemical process, a reaction of hormones in the body? Nah, that's crazy. The lights in the house were on. I stopped. All of my determination seemed to have disappeared at once. I didn't even come up with the words I was going to say. After catching my breath, I slowly walked to the front door and knocked. After some time, I heard slow steps coming from inside the house. It sounded as if someone was dragging something along the floor. Coming! An old woman's voice sounded, and soon the door opened. Good evening. Ooh, a new character, Mafia Babe. I recognized Himitsu's grandmother. Since our last meeting, she seemed to have grown 50 years older, not 5. Nico-kun? She squinted her weak-sighted eyes, but didn't look particularly surprised. Yes, I'm sorry for coming so late, but I know that Himitsu is here, and I really need to talk to her. Himitsu-chan? No, she isn't here. The old lady went silent as if gathering her thoughts. She and her father came here a week ago, but today she isn't here. The top of her head barely reached my chest, but she managed to block the entire passageway, and behind her, I couldn't see what was happening inside the house. I attempted to see Himitsu where Himitsu's shoes were sitting on the genkan were futile. Traditional Japanese entryway areas for a house, apartment, or building. Combination of a porch and a doormat, usually located inside the building directly in front of the door. The primary function of a genkan is for the removal of shoes before entering the main part of the house or building. I know, is Himitsu here? Cool, knowledge there. But look, however, arguing with the old woman was foolish and simply pointless. I could not break into her house. Besides, if Himitsu had really wanted to, she could have come out herself. Maybe I was wrong. Well, alright. Sorry then. Have a safe trip. Himitsu's grandmother said briefly and hurried to close the door. That was strange, though. I was sure that in a different situation she would have mentioned the fact that it was dark already, and asked if I wanted to stay the night. Slowly walked away from the house and gave it a farewell look. Was Himitsu really not there? The best way to hide something is to put it out in the open, right? Although her father didn't seem to think so. So suddenly, I saw someone's silhouette in a window covered by a bamboo grate. paper frame slid to the side and I saw Himitsu. I was about to run to her, but she quickly shook her head, letting me know that it wasn't a good idea. I froze in hesitation. She was looking at me through the dusk of the autumn night with agony in her big green eyes, and it became clear to me she didn't want to see me. Hey, a new place. I found a hotel to stay at after I returned to town. It was a typical ryokan, a type of traditional Japanese inn. Cool. I had been in other ones before on school trips. I had to keep knocking on the door for quite a while before the sleepy host finally let me in. Then it took another 10 minutes to explain to her what I needed so late at night. Japanese people in rural areas wake up and go to bed early. Finally, she took me to one of the rooms and walked off to finish watching her dreams. Another new thing. The hotel looked perfectly normal inside as well. I didn't know what I'd expected, or if I expected anything at all. Well, definitely not a suite. A simple futon was going to do just fine. In American movies, any hotel room infallible has a minibar. I wouldn't refuse the luxury, but all I had was a jug of water. My head was treacherously empty. I could only see Himitsu's face before me again and again. Leave, she seemed to be screaming at me. So I'd come here for nothing? It was all for nothing. Shinjuku Station, the long hours on the train, the girl sticking her tongue out, even the sky full of stars. For nothing. There was something else in Himitsu's eyes, but I couldn't grasp what exactly. It clearly wasn't anger, resentment, or even surprise. No, she wasn't banishing me, only letting me know that it wasn't the right time. I plopped onto the floor and looked at my reflection in the dark TV screen. Its convex surface was distorting reality and showing the room as frames of a silent monochromatic film. The odd reflection looked 10 years older than me. An unfamiliar alien, tired, haggard face stared at me with colorless eyes. The person locked on the other side of the screen seemed to have accepted his position as prisoner of a crooked mirror, and had accepted it a while ago. No one ends up like this right away. Was it really me? What did Himitsu really want? The question popped into my head again. Could she go against her father's will now? When he was so determined? If she couldn't resist herself, there was no one but me to help her. I knew that sounded silly and presumptuous. I went so far... Whoa, that light turned on. Creepy! I went so far with my introspections that I imagined myself as her protector, a brave knight ready to do anything in the name of love, the only person capable of opposing the monster Ryunosuke Ito. No matter if it was silly and naive, at that moment I was ready to do anything for the sake of love. I decided to fight until the end. Though I also decided to postpone the fight until tomorrow, and fell asleep without taking even my clothes off. Alright, good night. The 27th. Is it snow? Morning in the countryside and morning in stuffy Tokyo are totally different. It had been so long since I was last out in nature, waking with the sunrise, the cool wind, and the singing of birds. It's been so long since the morning sun caressed my face with its welcoming rays. It didn't feel like my musty bedroom at all. It felt like I was ready to move mountains, but the whole idyll was disturbed by someone's voice insistently demanding my attention. And it wasn't Himitsu's. I wanted to keep my eyes closed to retain that pleasant feeling of morning half-sleep. And my world started shaking, more and more, and the voice kept calling me more and more insistently. Nikolai! Uh-oh! I don't like the look of that face either. Ryunosuke-sen was standing over me, shaking me by the shoulders. He wasn't even trying to conceal the irritation on his normally emotionless face. Awake? Finally! What do you want? My consciousness had no desire to return from the land of dreams. Himitsu's father took a step back. Nikolai, for some reason you don't take in what you're told at all. Are you seriously this bent on self-destruction? I got up all in one motion, my vision blacking out for a moment. Thought I clearly told you that you and my daughter are done. But no. First I had to take her away from Tokyo, so now you're hunting her down here, is that it? I guess it is. I have a short reply. So what should I do with you? He threw his arms up in the air so casually, it seemed we were talking about a naughty puppy, not my life. His profession clearly required some acting skills, but in my opinion, Ryunosuke-san tended to go a bit overboard. Keeping quiet now, you should have thought of that before. Ryunosuke-san, what's this all for? I'm here and so are you, and so is Himitsu. Have you ever asked her what she wants? Have you ever wondered what her wishes and feelings are? You pretend that you're protecting her. No, you believe it. You really believe you're doing it all for her own good. But ask Himitsu, does she agree with your decisions? Is she happy with her future? It's not only about me, after all. When she got so little left of school, she just had to drop everything. Her friends, her old house, where she had lived her entire life. Is that really what's best for her? She's not a little child anymore. Are you done? Ryunosuke-san asked coldly. Not a single muscle twitched on his face. Nikolai, you don't know what life is. I have already told you that I feel sorry about your situation, but there's nothing to be done about it now. All your words and actions are just a display of youthful idealism. How do you imagine the future of the son of Soviet spies, the daughter of a Japanese intelligence agent, of a gaijin and a Japanese? But Himitsu is only half Japanese. Annoyed flashed across his face, but only for a moment. Ryunosuke-san clearly didn't like to discuss his ex-wife. I wondered how the fact that she was Russian was connected to his work, spying on Russian immigrants. What was the cause and what was the effect? You leave me no choice. So what, you're just going to shoot me? The thought, and most importantly, the thought that my life might end here and now, took my breath away. Well then you should know that Himitsu saw me last night, and that she'll never forgive you for it. Ryunosuke-san closed his eyes and sighed heavily. Don't make things even more complicated, Nikolai. You knew how it would end when you decided to come here. I didn't know anything like that, and I really hadn't been thinking about anything of the sort. Children shouldn't be responsible for their father's sins, neither me nor Himitsu. Nothing but empty words. Life isn't a TV show, but it is a visual novel. And you aren't its protagonist. You still think I suspect you of something. He smirked and walked back and forth through the hotel room, as if studying it and wondering about staying. He approached the window and looked outside, paused there for a few seconds, and nodded to someone downstairs. That cold, calculated approach is how he was with everything, starting with the choice of furniture in a room, and ending with human lives. Had that been the case, at the very minimum, I wouldn't be talking to you here and now. People get into bad situations on accident. Unfortunate things happen in their lives, also on accident. And it's nobody's fault. You can't fix it, you just need to live on, move on. But you don't want to. You just stand pat and create problems for others. And that's unacceptable. Those are accidents, understand? A sequence of events that happen by themselves, and that nobody is responsible for. Meanwhile, you're trying to blame me, Kobayashi Corporation, Japan, everyone around you. And by doing so, you're causing problems for everybody, including yourself. We can't allow this to continue. Think I came here to the middle of nowhere to investigate my parents' murder? True hatred for this person started to boil up inside me. Here you go again. Murder. I only came here for Himitsu. I interrupted him. Even if for the last time, I want to hear it from her. I will not allow you to see Himitsu, he said firmly. I had to think of my options. Of course Ryunosuke-san was over 50, but he was still a trained agent, and who was I? Besides, he most likely had a gun. Therefore, trying to run wasn't an option, at least not now. You've already caused us enough problems. Nikolai, let's go. He pointed to the door. Go where? For God's sake, would you stop? There was steel in his voice, and I lost any desire to argue. While we were going down the stairs, I couldn't stop thinking about Himitsu's anguished expression when she was looking out the window of her grandma's house. Though it wasn't a sign of despair, she looked more like a princess who wanted to be rescued. We walked out into the street. A black Toyota was waiting in front of the hotel. The brute in the driver's seat stared at me unblinkingly. Meanwhile, the town had already awoken. People went to bed early here, but woke up just as early. Smiling old women were walking the streets, smiling old men were opening their shops, and sleepy tourists were crawling out of their hotels. Perhaps I wouldn't win in a fight with Ryunosuke-san, but there was no way he'd start shooting me here and now, and I was quite confident in my sprinting ability. I'm sorry, Ryunosuke-san. He looked at me confused. Let's finish this conversation another time. I broke into a run. The wind was whipping against my face. My lungs burned from the freezing morning air. The unfamiliar voice demanding I sat was becoming quieter and quieter. I didn't dare look back. I couldn't even think about it. The sound of the car engine was getting closer. I made a turn into a narrow alley between houses. They wouldn't shoot me in the back in broad daylight after all. A resort town isn't the best place to chase your target by car. It seemed that Ryunosuke-san and his henchmen had realized that too. The sound of the car engine and the screeching of tires disappeared completely. I ran out onto the main street and quickly looked around. Everything seemed to be fine. I caught my breath and quickly thought over what I would do now. Since they couldn't catch me, they would first try to block all of my escape routes, which at minimum were the railway station and the hotel I could have returned to. But I wanted to give Ryunosuke-san the satisfaction. The target was clear, and so was the route. I had to talk to Himitsu no matter what, even if it was the last thing I did in my life. What could a normal person say about running? Most likely that the aerobic exercise is good for the cardiovascular system, but if you think about it, that's a very shallow and incomplete conclusion. I was never particularly sporty, but at the same time I had no extra fat on me, didn't smoke, and occasionally played football. Running a few kilometers to Himitsu's grandma's house? Easy! Of course it was foolish to try to outrun a car. If Ryunosuke went there immediately, I had no chance. After a few minutes I'd slowed down a bit. It was impossible to cover the entire distance at this pace. After catching my breath, I felt a rhythm and was running effortlessly. A push of my leg. It felt as if I was soaring up a few meters and then down to earth, bouncing softly just to go up again. It's hard to run and think at the same time. I wasn't even trying. Everything was clear anyway. My way lay across the little hill and down before I could see the green field separated by a thin scar of railway. The train was slowly going in the direction of Tokyo, working its way around the mountain that loomed over the landscape like a silent guardian. I was running forward while the train was heading in the opposite direction. Wondered if that ill-mannered girl was inside, returning home. The road led to the forest, though I could barely call that a road. It was more like a narrow path shaking among the trees. What if this was the suicide forest? I looked around as I ran, but noticed nothing unusual. There were no dead bodies, ghosts, or even wild animals. Then I quickened my pace as soon as I ran across a wooden bridge. The planks under my feet strained and squeaked like an old man scolding children. A bird's cry came from behind me, like a scream of despair. I tripped over a tree root and fell to the ground, seriously bruising my palms. But that only stopped me for a couple of seconds, and there I was again, running onward through the strange forest, as if I were making my way through all obstacles of life, leaving behind so many things that had been holding me back. The sun's rays were penetrating the dense canopy of trees. I was sweating and my sweat was rolling into my eyes, a salty, nasty burning. I had to wipe them constantly and was blinking so often that it felt like I was in a film by Brothers Lumiere, going 16 frames per second. After some time my heart started making itself known, its beats becoming clearer and more frequent. Every beat echoed in my head, blood pulsating in my temples, ears popping, and I had to swallow nervously, which wasn't easy as my mouth was absolutely dry. Finally I saw a gap between the trees and dashed toward the small, at least couple of centuries old house. I was near. The plot of land was situated next to each other without any system of or plan. Bigger, smaller, triangular, square, rectangular. Some lacked any buildings at all, while others just had shacks built on them, and others more had decent houses. But in general, there were no wealthy peasants in this village. No kulaks to dispossess, at least. Fist. In Russian and Soviet history, a wealthy, prosperous peasant, famously a target for mass repressions in the Soviet Union. Good to know. Loosed my breath. I felt more respect for Ryunosuke Ito for making his way up here in the world from here. Usually great figures come from the lowest social classes. Genius never makes it to the second generation. Having experienced their share of loss and suffering, they often project their distorted sense of justice onto their people. There are many such examples in history, not just Russia's history. I was running on the compacted clay that served in place of asphalt here, paper shacks passing before my eyes. A seemingly 100-year-old woman brandished a broom at me and shouted something, even runs in the middle of the day. I was too tired to react in any way. There were about 100 meters left to Himitsu's house, a last dash, and I saw the familiar roof around the corner. Happens often, you only remember separate details out of the whole picture, and those details look like different colored pieces in a puzzle, but looked 1,000 pieces. All the roofs in the village were more or less the same, but the houses were more or less the same height. I instantly recognized the one I was looking for. I'm here. Are we going to rescue Himitsu and save her life, or am I gonna get shot to death? We'll see ya. After running into the yard, I doubled over with my hands on my knees. The air was hissing out of my open mouth. Here I was. Ryunosuke-san's car was nowhere to be seen. Tried to take a step forward, but I couldn't even raise my leg. They seemed to be made of stone, rooted to the ground. I hit my knees a few times, and slowly wobbled to the door. Please be home, just be home, I was whispering. I need just a minute, no, even half a minute, 5 seconds. 5 seconds would be enough to tell you everything. Please just be home. I thought I heard the sound of a car somewhere in the distance, but the next second everything was again filled with the normal sounds of a village. The cries of cattle and poultry, cracking of firewood, the grating of saw, and the knocking of hammers. Give me a second, guys. Okay. I felt like it didn't belong here. First in this typical Japanese countryside, then in Japan altogether. I couldn't imagine how I could live like this, even with Himitsu. It absolutely wasn't my thing. I immediately wanted to return to Tokyo with its crazy speed of life, pulsed of 200 beats a minute. That's where my heart was supposed to beat so quickly. Not here at the front door of the house, where multiple generations of Ito's family had been raised. I knocked, but nobody replied. I kept knocking again and again and ran out to the backyard. Everything was closed, and it was clear no one was home. Well played, Ito. Taking Himitsu away at the first sign of danger. What if it was her idea? After all, yesterday she... No. Was afraid to believe it, but there was a possibility that Himitsu had decided to leave herself in order to avoid seeing me. Ooh, we're inside the house now. I busted in the garden door and walked inside. I checked all the rooms, but the house was empty. It's the thing. I returned to the living room and checked everything again. A pink elephant was sitting on the table. How could I not have noticed it? It was sitting motionlessly on its pedestal and stared at me with its cold black eyes. Cute. Remember this? Remember when I won this for her? What was that? A message? Did Himitsu leave it here on purpose? A toy she had really treasured? Or was it Ito again? I sank powerlessly to the floor and put my head on the table. The stuffed animal was emotionless, but I still seemingly could see a sad expression on its face. What, your mistress left you? I addressed it. So we're the only two left. I yanked the elephant by its trunk and tilted and fell to the ground, or it tilted, and a little piece of folded paper slipped out from under it. It rose a couple centimeters over the table and slowly glided down. As if enchanted, I watched its flight for a long time after couldn't shake a strange numbness from my body. Nico-kun, crossed out. Sorry, but crossed out. Would be better if both of us crossed out. No, it had obviously been written several times and was never finished. But what did it change? What did it matter who had left the elephant and the stupid piece of paper here and why? The most important thing was that it was Himitsu's handwriting, the way she chose to bid me farewell. Maybe these were her last words. So did it really matter who was right and who was wrong? I wondered if this elephant felt as lonely as I did, and if it was as worried as I was. I'd always thought that objects like it have their own egregore, and thanks to our thoughts and memories gain their own souls. The elephant and Epps had absorbed all my love for Himitsu, and all her love for me. Then it was thrown away like an out-of-fashion sweater. Getting rid of things that remind you of a person you love is the point of no return. The sound of a car engine reached me from outside. Uh-oh. I had no strength left to run, so I walked into the yard, tensed up and prepared for the worst. My arms went impotently limp, lest remaining energy leaving me. Ito appeared from around the corner, accompanied by a couple goons. Got you now, Nikolai. Where's Himitsu? She doesn't want to see you. Did she say so herself? Yes, I don't know what you did, but in the end, I'm glad that my daughter was able to make the right choice. I warned you, more than once. She made her choice and I made mine. He could be lying, probably was. The expression with which Himitsu had looked at me out of the window, that unfinished note, and the damn pink elephant. Didn't she realize the consequences would be for me? And if she did she care? It took me too long to realize I love her, so here we are. Do you like cold or hot pizza better? Oh, I like hot. I needs my pizzas hot. What about you, Mafia babe? I like me hot pizzas. I had a hot breakfast pizza this morning, actually. I smirked and closed my eyes. I assume this is the end? I don't like cheap melodrama. Ito said coldly and drew his pistol from a pocket at his chest. Well, at least tell her. I knew full well that he wouldn't. Cold all the way for you, huh? Interesting. Very, very interesting. That's pretty cool, though. Tell Himitsu that I wish her happiness. Ito lowered his pistol for a second as a shadow of doubt crossed his mind. Theatrics even in the face of death. He grimaced in disgust and cocked the gun. But the shot didn't come. I was counting instinctively. 1, 2, 3. To dirty my hands, he said in a squeamish tone and lowered his weapon. This time really is the last one. Run away. Run and don't look back. Try to get as far as possible from me, and my daughter, Tokyo, and even Japan if you can. You're still young, you can start over, and in 10 years you won't even remember this conversation. He sighed. Even if Himitsu will never know about this, I don't want her to even imagine I could be such a monster. Your love didn't work out. That happens too. It's nobody's fault. Hey Fuzzy. Came in like a wrecking ball. Just say hiya and let you know you're still around. Just turned back around to fall asleep. Thanks for coming, Fuzzy. Oh, I know you're still here, don't you worry. You're always here and chilling out and stuff. It's good to see ya. Where do I go now? Forward, with your head held up high. With your head up high, just fight your way through life like you've been doing so far. Don't let one wrong turn become a dead end. Now it was Ryunosuke's son's turn to be way too pretentious, and I found it funny. I smirked and immediately felt strength returning to me. After all, nothing stopped me from dying whenever. You'll just let me go like this? I'm sure that's what Himitsu would want. Thank you. I said unexpectedly even to myself, passed by them as if in slow motion. I walked down the street in the direction of the town. I could try to find Himitsu again, or I could return to Tokyo, but I clearly realized that this chapter of my life was over. I had been running a marathon, but I slipped up and fell before the finish line. Exhausted and sore and basically falling asleep as he typed this. Then sleep, Fuzzy. Sleep well and sleep good. Make sure it's like a heavy sleep. Those are normally the best kind of sleeps. But yeah, thanks for coming and thanks for your hard work in life. Now I had to make a choice to keep lying where I was or resisting all pain and suffering, stand up and go the rest of the way, receive the honorary certificate and a sack of rubbish for an award. After all, the life of every person is a race where the goals under the tombstone with their name on it. Good night. Bye, Fuzzy. See ya. All we can choose is whether it's a nameless wooden cross or a fancy stone monument, and I decided not to end my race early. The wind, unusually warm for the season, came down from the mountains and blew against my back, sweeping away the remains of my previous life. So suddenly, I felt an unusual lightness. Everything that had happened over the last weeks left only a feeling of slight sadness, plus my love for Himitsu that didn't go anywhere. It would live here. It would live there, deep inside, for the rest of my life and become a story. The story would be forgotten, and there wouldn't be anyone to tell it to convey everything I had felt then. And now another story was beginning for me, a different story. Just kidding. I went back for Himitsu. Himitsu's bad ending #1 I just got. And we did it, guys! We beat the game! Woo! What'd you think? Did you like it? We're moving on in life. We're moving to the future, or whatever. We're moving to the thing where we do the future. Yeah, you loved it. I'm glad you did. Can we go faster? Sure, you want to go to the main menu. I don't think there's anything after this, so I'm just going to do the main menu. Well, I guess that's it, huh, Mafia Babe? I guess that's the end. But there's a problem, though. It said Himitsu's bad ending. That means that there's a good ending, right? So, you know what I'm gonna do, right, Mafia Babe? I think I know what I'm gonna do. Let's do it again! Let's go! Loading, loading, loading. Here's the epic tree. Are you ready for me to read every single word again, Mafia Babe? Every single word? Every single word. Oh, jeez. Oh, God. Oh, what the heck is going on here? Oh, my gosh. Oh, my God, it's going forward. Yeah, any dialogue I've read already, I'm going to skip it. And I have the guide here, by the way, for the true answer. Let's see. Start a new game. First choice, answer. Like I did last time. Wow! Oh my gosh! Look at the music go. I like the way it looks too. Like I'm fast forwarding a VHS tape. Isn't that awesome? Answer. Don't intervene. I'm going to not intervene this time. Thinking rationally, this was none of my business. I didn't know the full story, didn't know the background. Sure, before people ganging up on one girl wasn't cool, but my intervention might just make things worse. Fine, you're probably right. The N. I gritted my teeth, turned away, and took several steps toward the school gate. Well, are you coming? Himitsu was still watching the scuffle. Yes, sorry. We ignored her this time. Still, that's not right. I was sitting near the shoe cubbies watching the other students pass by. We should tell the teachers. And what are they going to do? Well, what? I couldn't shake off one thought. The thought that I had done the wrong thing. What if it were you in her place, and if everyone just kept walking past with their eyes lowered? Mitsu looked embarrassed. But I have you. What if I weren't nearby at the time? I ignored her and continued my fiery diatribe. Let's say I got sick, or I slept in, or I don't know, what if I... That moment, Iwamura appeared from around the corner. Mitsu looked at me quizzically, but turning, also frozen surprise. Iwamura rapidly changed out of her shoes, walked past me and paying no attention to anyone or anything. See, I told you everything was going to be alright. I didn't recall her saying that. That's what you thought? That's what you call alright? I muttered under my breath. I'll see you at lunch. Yeah, sure. Answered absent-mindedly, still lost in thought before heading off to class. Another routine school day had now begun, but we're gonna skip. Oh, what happened? My conscience was still eating me up for not intervening. Several guys from Class B were apparently harassing a girl. I don't know who exactly. No, I didn't see anything. They make trouble for everyone. Yeah, not the nicest of people. I know I hope they don't bother any of ours. And what do you care? I asked you to list 5 names of students in our class, but you get stuck just after 2. As if I know your last name. And who else's? Kyosuke grinned. Who else? I know Michael's. Michael did not look up from his book, seemingly unaware that his name had been mentioned. And besides that, he crossed his arms over his chest, straightened out, and looked at me triumphantly. And I knew. Iwamura's name kept popping into my head. But if I named her now, wouldn't Kyosuke think that I had witnessed the scene at the gate this morning and lied to him? No, come on. I was just being paranoid. Hey, what's up? The rescue came from an unexpected source. A classmate had suddenly materialized near my desk. And I also know his last name. Kyosuke was surely going to finish me off by asking for the actual name, but at that moment the bell rang. My friend mumbled something that sounded like a cross between, "This time you win," and "damn you," and sat down reluctantly at his desk. He didn't need to know that girl was Iwamura. She had it pretty rough as it was. The next lesson was contemporary Japanese. Oh jeez. Oh my god. Ah! Oh god. Oh, it's Ellie. Oh my god, look at her. This is good. This will be a quick playthrough. Oh, go for a stroll. Join Himitsu for lunch. What do you know? It's join Himitsu for lunch. Who would have thought? Maybe we did agree and I had simply forgotten. Ah. Now really, what was I supposed to do? Walk up to her and say I'm sorry I didn't help you? What's done is done. You're probably right. Mitsu grew visibly sad. Please don't start. You yourself said we shouldn't get involved. The last thing I needed was for Himitsu to start blaming me now. I already knew what I did wrong. I know, but on the other hand, I felt sorry for her. I stopped holding things in for so long. But what else can we do? Yes, it's an unpleasant situation, no question. But what now? Start breaking their faces? Nico-kun, you're made of stone. Stone? Have you tried the rolls from the cafeteria? They're made of stone. Or how about the bread from my chicken cupboard? It's so hard not even the mice would touch it. Me, I'm not made of stone. I'm just a realist. The way this came out, it sounded almost like some Politburo speech. Soviet Communist Party's plenum. Okay, cool. But Himitsu did not share my enthusiasm. Just think it would have been the right thing to do. Somehow Himitsu reminded me of a Soviet pioneer scout. Oh, reference to the last game made by this company. The comparison made me burst out in laughter. I choked and rice was flying everywhere. Now look what you've done. Now look what you've done. Oh my god. Ah! Right, there's Catherine. There's Himitsu. Run after Catherine. Do nothing. Looks like it's do nothing. Yeah, I don't know her. How much longer was he going to let this continue? Oh god, okay, here we go. Yeah, this is gonna go a lot faster. Now that I've got the bulk of the story done, we can just chill. You know, chill. We can do the chill. I wonder if the music is being fast forwarded too somehow. Oh, aha! New dialogue. Note that I did not stop the fast forwarding there. Whenever there's new dialogue, it stops itself. So that's the stuff that I read. She was probably mad that I didn't help her yesterday. The awkward silence desperately demanded a conversation to break it. So, do you have to do this often? I couldn't think of anything better to say. She raised her eyes and looked at me in surprise. Oh god. Oh, let's see. Say you don't know her. I don't know her. She's nobody. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I see. Kagome drawled. She clearly didn't buy it. Why did you bring her up anyway? It's not every day we have a new student in our class, and such a striking foreigner at that. I'm a foreigner too, you know. She looked at me up and down, snickered, and said, yeah, sure. I knew it. Not only would my face not pass as Japanese, but now I was being denied the title of a proper gaijin as well. Are you always like this? No, I'm always like this. Oh, God. Oh, there's Ellie. There's your friend Ellie. Don't hide. On the other hand, the fun was only just starting. There's no place to hide here. In there! Ellie grabbed my hand and dragged me to a small door which I had missed initially. The door opened into a cramped utility closet. No way, I'm not going in there. Just then the principal entered the classroom accompanied by 2 teachers. I told you I heard something. I'm not hearing things. That may be you, but I'm still in my right mind. Good day. I smiled crookedly and gave him a wave. Anoken-kun, Kobayashi-san, I think we have already met today in this company. While I am still not surprised to see you here, Anoken-kun, when it comes to Kobayashi-san, Ali looked completely disoriented and wouldn't even step out from behind me. So suddenly felt sorry for her. Shouldn't have set her up like that after all. It was obvious now that she'd been skipping classes too, but for her the mistake carried much more weight. I was playing the guitar in here. Picked up the guitar and plucked the strings a few times. As for Ellie, Kobayashi-san, she was just going about her business when she heard me, which is how we all ended up here. It's entirely by chance. She had business in the old wing? Well, yeah, you know how it is, making the rounds. Do you take us for idiots, Kin-kun? I wouldn't say idiots exactly, I muttered. What are you whispering there? Speak up! I can speak for myself. Ellie finally mustered the courage and stepped forward. Yes, I was skipping class and playing the guitar. What now? Are you going to tell my grandfather? Go on, I don't think he'll be surprised. Her sudden brazenness took me aback. Hang on, Kobayashi-san, you too are playing the guitar? What is this, some kind of musical band you have here? I could barely keep myself from cracking up with laughter, but Ellie just sighed. Anyway, if you want to report me, you know where to call. Now, if you have no more questions for me. Confidently, she headed for the door, passing the teachers without even sparing them a glance. The teachers, it seemed, hadn't expected to be rebuffed by their model student and stood frozen in a stupor. Decided to take advantage of this opening. Well, I guess I'll be going too. I caught up to Ellie in the hallway. Wait, sorry about the way that turned out. We should have hid. Yes, we should have, she retorted without even turning to face me. I was hoping for a slight different reaction. You love her more. Ellie. Eventually we'll be doing her out, Mafia babe. So, get ready for that. Hehehehe. Give me a second. Okay. Different reaction, and I had to stand up for her. It's just, you see, it happened also suddenly. I do see. It's just not your problem. It wouldn't have been my problem if you were there by yourself, but now, what? She stopped abruptly before turning around and glared at me. You're going to call into the principal again? Get reprimanded? Suspended for a couple of weeks? Big deal. No, but enough then. She walked off, clicking her heels loudly on the floor, and I was left standing dumbfounded, just like the teachers a minute earlier. Thinking about it, Ellie was actually right. I didn't give a damn about any disciplinary action, but what would it do to her? A single misstep could shatter her image as a spotless princess. If I hadn't been there, she would have hidden herself, and most likely, everything would have been fine. Oh well, there was no point in dwelling on it now. This whole musical interlude made me entirely forget the reason I wound up here in the first place. I've been looking for Catherine. Oh god, we're fast-forwarding again, oh god. What you looking at? I really was staring at him without even realizing it. The guilt over yesterday's incident must have been to blame. Just looking at your school uniform. My uniform? What about it? Well, it's the same as mine. If you dare tell anyone... Chill out. I interrupted him. As you can see, you're not the only one skipping class here. Why would I incriminate myself? Oh yeah, right. The guy got all flustered. What a moron. A rich, arrogant, hardened bully. But thick as a stump. What could the likes of him hope for in life? For daddy's money to last to their old age? Turned away in disgust. Two more guys entered the bar. These ones were older college students, I guessed. They joined the punks from my school. There's a whole gang of them. The bartender grunted. They come here often? Occasionally. He replied and continued in a low voice. Be careful around them. I've heard all kinds of rumors. These fellas won't stop even at murder. If they get into trouble, Daddy will just bail them out, and they'll go scot-free. I figured as much. So what happened between you? Nothing. Forget it. I had absolutely no desire to tell them that yesterday I watched from a distance that they bullied a girl. And then I did nothing but walk past. I felt shame and disgust. Disgust more than shame. Kolya, my man, I respect you and all, but you gotta understand that if anything happened, I wouldn't be able to help you. I got the bar and my family. I get it, just pour me another one, will you? Meanwhile, the voices of this gang of gilded youth were getting louder. Ever louder. Their laughter sounded even more like the neighing of horses. They were discussing booze-ups and parties, who spent how much money on what, and who slept with who, and who was next. I was about to pay my bill and leave when one of them jumped up and shouted, Right, I don't have anyone at home till night. A minute later, the bar was quiet again. At least they always pay their bills. The bartender smiled apologetically. I sighed and stood up, but just then the door opened and standing in the doorway was... Catherine! She noticed me lingering for a moment, then confidently strode closer. But she passed right by me and sat down on the counter a couple seats away. Fast forwarding! Don't worry, we'll be learning about Catherine eventually. But first, Himitsu will be first. I left the bar and stretched. If the past couple of days of my life resembled some dumb manga from Kyosuke's collection, then my encounters with Catherine felt more like a soap opera, a viscous, sticky, dark brew with a beginning but no end. Oh god! a life of fast forwarding and fast forwarding even more. Lie. Apparently, we are lying. I just walked around. There was no need to tell her. On second thought, because really, what was the point? Ignorance is bliss. This entire time? Well, yeah, why? Nothing, it's just... Himitsu turned away. She must have realized I was lying. As was to be expected. But I didn't feel ashamed at all. Oh, what happened? What the hell? But I didn't feel ashamed at all. Alright, sit down and eat. The dinner's cold, of course, but you only have yourself to blame. Ah! Just because I lied about Catherine? After so many years, Himitsu had come to know me very well, so she knew that there were times when it was better to remain silent, and times when it was better to do the opposite. So what was she hoping to achieve now? She knew I wasn't a fan of small talk, but the silence was becoming unbearable. Fast forwarding! The silence was becoming unbearable, so I just fast forwarded. Fast forwarding my life. Alright, so this is where the death threats begin. The death threats, we're chilling with Michael. We're in the... Oh, try to find the tail, do nothing. Do nothing is what I gotta do. Quit psyching yourself up, my mind protested. Why couldn't I just imagine it? Oh, you love her. Oh, I read that already. Or maybe they were two different people who just so happened to look alike. I took a deep breath and continued my aimless wandering. I still kept looking around, but there was no one following me anymore. So I fast-forwarded. Right, there's Ellie's musical thing. The notes, the mysteries. Just because I couldn't tell her about all that stuff didn't mean I didn't want to. So I'd gone to a concert. What did it matter? Ah! Alright, what's with the next choice? What will the next choice be? Hey, Catherine, how you doing? Good to see ya. Oh, hey, Kyosuke. What's up? Oh, hey, Michael. How you doing? Go with Himitsu is next. Wait, go to Himitsu. Okay, here we go. I think I did this choice last time, actually. Woo! Mafia Babe, we're gonna get the true ending with Himitsu now. Not some fake ending, but the real ending. Go to Himitsu once again. Yes, go to Himitsu. Hi, Himitsu. How you doing? Sup, girl? What? Oh, God. What's up? We're just chilling. It's nighttime. It's loading time. Oh, God, Himitsu's awake. So what's next? What was next in the Himitsu storyline? I think at this point we're just locked into the Himitsu plot. Alright, go to the teacher's room. Do nothing. A whole lot of do nothings. There's what's her name? Saya, right? Yeah, Saya. There's Michael and what's his name again? Kyosuke. Okay, here we go. Next is go home with Himitsu. Which we did last time, too. Oh, man. To think I was reading all of this stuff. I wonder which stream we're on now. Since we're on playthrough number 2, which story are we on? Alright, here we go. Go for a walk. Let's go for a walk, everyone. Yes, go for a walk. Right across from my house on the other side of the street was Himitsu. Oh, jeez! Oh, we're at the fair. We're at the fair, Mafia Babe, remember? I remember. When the haunted house. We fell off the roller coaster. We won her the elephant. You remember? Those were the days. So when will the next choice be? What will be next? And how can we win over Himitsu goodly this time? No running away, just good things happening. I called Catherine. Hey Catherine, what's up? How you doing? Oh man, I'm really relieved that we're skipping a lot of the dialogue, to be honest. This is all stuff I don't need to read anymore. I am free from reading this stuff forever. That's the fun thing about visual novels. You just... all the stuff you read you don't have to read anymore. Oh, it's what's her name? Remember this? We got her drunk and happy. And then it turned out she's evil. See? She's evil. Then we got home. We're loading. Fast forwarding. Today was the day that Himitsu was standing in my classroom. Then everyone was here. We chilled out with, what's his name? Now we're skipping a lot. This is good. This is good, guys. Oh, then I was followed in the city, I think. And finally yesterday I was interrogated by a Soviet agent. A KGB agent. KGB, understand? Ah! I think we told Himitsu now, like all the trouble's going on, but she already knows at this point, right? Pretty sure her father already said, hey, can you do the thing? Can you do the following of and the spying of the Nikolai, please? Thanks, daughter. Epic music. So what's next? Chilling with Kyosuke. Okay, here we go. Stay home. We're going to stay home, Mafia babe. And you can't stop me. Hehehehe. Dots. Ding dong. Hey, you. How you doing? What's up? Sup, girl? Oh, hey, Catherine. How you doing? And don't worry, by the way. We'll be doing Catherine's... I think we'll do Catherine's next. After we conquer Himitsu, we'll do Catherine next. Just for you, Mafia babe, I'm gonna save the best for last, which is Ellie, of course. Alright, the flashback. This is the flashback. I think it's the flashback still. Pretty sure it is. Days passed, weeks passed, months passed. Except it turns out, oops, we're in a flashback. Yay! Yeah. I wanna do the Ellie last. It'll be great. Oh, hi, Saya. It's none of your business. Okay, Mafia babe, it's none of your business. No, it's your business. I mean, fudge. Right. It's none of your business. Whatever the case, you keep nagging at Himitsu for how terrible I am. Saya's face visibly changed. She frowned and seemingly grew a couple years older. Will it make you happy if we fight? Do you think it'll make Himitsu feel better? What makes you think you know what's better for her? How long have you known her? A year? 2 years? I've known her for 10. 10 fucking years. That's a shitload of your time. I spread my arms, showing how much time that was exactly. You're sick. Himitsu must have terrible luck to be involved with such a jerk. She stood up and headed for her girlfriend's table. Nice. Piss off. At least she has a jerk while you're surrounded by cows, I said after her. In reality, Saya hadn't said anything new and there wasn't any reason to be upset with her. Mostly I was just angry with myself. That girl had hit a sore spot. With great precision, I must say. Meanwhile, Himitsu's classmates weren't in a hurry to leave. Having finished their milk cocktails and ice cream, they kept sitting there, chatting about casual stuff. I was throwing rare annoyed glances at them, but Saya made a point to ignore me. Now, before I do anything, I'm actually going to save my game right here. Right on my old save. There we go. And now, let's go. Woo! Fast forwarding! Oh, she's so happy. Look at her there. She's so happy. Oh, we're at the club again. We're hanging with this guy. With this dude. This Broseph. Remember that Broseph? Oh, hi, Catherine. How you doing? Gonna talk about things? There's, this guy, Ryunosuke, who's the big bad guy, I guess, in the show, in this game. The big villain. So, we are going to go to the movies! Yay! What movie should we watch? Did we watch the movies? I guess we did, huh? Alright, we're hanging out with Michael. I think, he confessed that he liked Catherine. Well, that's all well and good. You can like Catherine during this playthrough. But during the playthroughs where I'll be after Catherine, I'm afraid you can't go after her. Sorry. Sorry, big boy. What's next now? There's her. We haven't seen her in 1,000 years. So much music in this game, Mafia Babe. It's so much. I kind of love it. Hi, Kagome. How you doing? What are you doing in my house? Get out of here. Go away. Your story will come eventually, but not right now. Hanging out with the lads. It's such a good game. This one is. It is. And to think we've only been following one character. It's none of my business. I can't decide for you or Catherine. She has her own life. Indeed, we had been in a relationship for a while, and it was stupid to think she'd be alone until retirement. Michael didn't react in any way, at least outwardly, simply saying, "I got you. What are you going to do now?" That's difficult for me to say right now, too. He smiled a little, but I assure you this will not impact our friendship. This will not impact our friendship, but it will make you fast forward through life. Oh yeah, we learned that he was the bad guy there. He was the big bad guy this whole time! And then she was the big bad guy, except kind of not really. Yeah, I found ending 1, right? Okay, here we go. In the park. In the park! Yay! Hi, Catherine. We're in the park now. What's up? Here's Himitsu. Oh, the fights are going to keep on going now. There's going to be a lot of fighting and split-ups and stuff. Here's this guy again. Ichinose. Man, we're skipping a lot of dialogue. This is great. This is good. Hey, Connor. How you doing today? What's up? You have class now. I'll see you soon, Mafia Babe. I'll let you know how this ending goes. What have you been up to, Connor? I haven't seen you in years. It's none of my business. By trying to deny the obvious, you're letting me know how you really feel. I am not. It's starting to drive me mad. I'm not trying to deny anything. Since when did you become a psychologist? Oh, jeez. Right, here's this lady again. Nothing. Did you have a good Valentine's Day? I got a bunch of things yesterday, which I'm happy about. It was a very productive day. It was very productive. Alright, gonna stretch real quick. Oh my gosh. But yeah, yesterday was very, very cool. Hopefully today is gonna go good too. Here's hoping. Fingers crossed, everything goes well. Alright. Yeah, nobody? Aw, me neither, Connor. I had my chat members, that's all I had. Should have stopped by the stream and we could have hang out. We could have all chilled and stuff, the Lonely Club. Right, Ryunosuke came over. He's evil. He's angry and evil and stuff. Oh, there's a lot of dialogue to skip. We're only in the first hour, too. Alright, the big battle. The big epic battle. We're in yesterday's stream now. How exciting. There's Ellie. We haven't seen her in years. Have you ever seen this game before, by the way, Connor? It's really good. It's really fun. I played this because of, Valentine's Day and love and stuff. And I've been looking at this one for a while, and it's pretty good so far. I'm doing fast forwarding because I read all this stuff, by the way. Just to let you know. Hanging out with the lad. I didn't know who this Kurosaki was, and I didn't care. I wonder what the principal told him. There was like one dialogue. One dialogue that I never read in this room. There's Saya. Hey, Saya. What's up, girl? How you doing? There should be one more choice that we have to make for this, but we'll see. We'll see what happens, eh? Oh, we're in today's stream now. We're at the beginning of today's stream. Ho 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 ho. Hopefully, it's not gonna mess up. I run away. I had to wait for too long, or maybe the time was passing too slowly. Finally, I had heard those same steps behind the door, as someone was dragging something heavy along the floor. The door moved aside and Himitsu's grandmother appeared from behind it. Nico-kun? She was clearly not happy to see me, and wasn't even trying to hide it. I need to talk to Himitsu, I said firmly. It was a good thing I had managed to catch my breath. Ryunosuke told me not to, she replied after a pause. Sympathy and seemingly understanding reflected on her wrinkled face. Apparently, she decided that it made no sense to pretend any further. It's very important for both her and me. Fine. Grandma finally agreed and stepped aside. Ran inside and shouted, Himitsu! How many years had passed since I last came here, but the house looked exactly like in my childhood memories. Mitsu peeked out of the next room. Nico-kun? And as luck would have it, I couldn't find the right words as the most important moment. Moreover, I couldn't say anything articulate at all. Nico-kun, why are you here? She took a few steps toward me, but stopped, as if hesitating. Yesterday, I thought you understood. We have nothing to talk about. And just listen to me. I pulled myself together. I love you. I've realized it way too late, but I want you to know it. I know that there's no forgiveness for what I've done. I understand that you've totally tolerated a lot from me for a long time, and I'm grateful for that. I'll accept any answer. Your happiness is what matters the most to me. Mitsu was standing and staring unblinkingly, as if through me. You said before that you loved me, and then you went back to your Katya. No, I didn't go back to anyone. It was a misunderstanding. Maybe I was telling the truth, but I knew that she had heard so many lies that sounded just like this that was unlikely she'd believe it. Catherine has nothing to do with all this. I understand what it looks like, but I'm not lying. Of course I should have dealt with her as soon as she returned. I'm sorry about that too. Just had to talk to you before. Hey Singy. Tennis boat. What is this I'm out? that might have thought of a better way to say that, maybe. But, always good to see ya. Hope you're having a lovely, lovely day. But mentioning Ryunosuke-san and his threats would be unfair, then Himitsu simply wouldn't have a choice. Before I leave, forgive me if you can. Nico-kun. She lowered her head. It's nobody's fault but mine. I ruined everything myself. I realized too late what really matters to me in life. Nico-kun. I did not appreciate what was most important to me. I took it for granted, thinking it wouldn't go anywhere. And most importantly, it was something I needed as much as air to breathe. I have nothing without you, and I need nothing without you. Nico-kun. Himitsu was crying. An instinct, I came closer to comfort her, but froze in place. I had no right to do that now. The sound of a car engine came from the yard, then I heard voices. Maybe we'll never see each other again. Don't forget me. Remember that we had a lot of good moments, not just bad ones. And you need to know that I wasn't going to hurt you. I'm just like this. And forgive me for everything. Nico-kun. I heard loud steps in the hall, and the next moment Ryunosuke-san burst into the room. Didn't really understand what I was doing, acting almost subconsciously. Oh, uh-oh. I grabbed Himitsu and kissed her. She jumped in surprise, but didn't try to resist. Nikolai! I heard her father's voice from somewhere at the edge of my mind. I wasn't paying attention to him, only looking into her green, wide-open eyes. There were no more tears in them. The eyes that were always the first thing I saw waking up in the morning. To an instant, all our happy moments flew before my mind's eye, from making a snowman when we were little to that ridiculous pink elephant. Yes, I had loved Himitsu my entire life. I just never understood that there also existed this kind of love, so different from the infatuation that I had developed for Catherine. Finally, our lips came apart. Okay, time to shoot him. Bang! Himitsu never responded to the kiss and lowered her head again. Well, had your tender moment. Now get out of here! Ryunosuke-san shouted. No, Dad! Himitsu said in almost a whisper, still looking at the floor. What? No, Dad, enough! She repeated louder. You've decided enough for me. I'm not a child anymore. Suddenly, she turned to him, clenched her little fist, flashing her eyes. I love Nico-kun, and neither you or anyone else can change that. You might think it's wrong and that I'll be unhappy, but it's my choice. Even if you think Nico-kun isn't perfect, even if it's true, I'm the one who's going to live with him, not you. I froze, forgetting to breathe. Even if you think he's done something wrong, I know for sure that Nico-kun hasn't done anything bad. He's lived through so much, you have no right to treat him like this. You can't treat us like this. Maybe we won't be happy the way you see happiness, but we're okay with living like that. And the fact that we're together doesn't stand in the way of your job, no matter what it is you do. Mitsu turned to me and I looked at me pleadingly. We love each other. I couldn't resist looking at Ryunosuke-san triumphantly. Take that. Of course I shouldn't have, but that's how I was. That's what Himitsu was talking about. This is beyond all reason. He sighed and leaned against the wall. Sorry, Dad, but you'll have to accept my choice. She came up right next to me and took me by the hand. Or he leaves, but he'll leave with me. Ryunosuke-san turned pale, deep wrinkles appearing at the corner of his eyes. Do you even realize what you're doing? I do. And you? He looked at me with no more anger, more like asking me for help. Fine. After all, I can't really help live your life for you. But if you two think that everything will be just as easy going forward, even if it won't, we'll stay together. Dreams of youth. Ryunosuke-san smirked. Have it your way, but we need to talk. Don't worry, I'm not going to go do anything to him. He anticipated Himitsu's possible indignation. In private. It's just for a bit. Everything's going to be alright. I squeezed Himitsu's hand tighter, then released it and walked to the yard with her father. You do understand what you're getting into, Nikolai. He started immediately. To be honest, I don't care about you. I'm only worried about my daughter. You may put her at risk. The problem is that I still understand nothing about what's going on. Ryunosuke-san looked a bit upset, and I even caught what seemed to be pity in his expression. What's your relationship with the KGB? And then remembered what I had given Irina a fat load of bullshit about the documents I was supposed to have found at Ito's place and about me knowing more than I really did. And what was more important, I had to agree to contact them next week. Well, I don't have a relationship with them. It's not that simple. Is simple your favorite word or something? How could things possibly be any more complicated? He grinned suddenly, took out a cigarette case and raised his eyes to me and smiled apologetically. Can't quit smoking. Cosmos. Soviet ones. Most popular type of cigarettes, produced by pretty much every tobacco factory. Despite their identical appearance and design, the cigarettes differed in taste and quality depending on the factory. Cool. Whoops. A Japanese person with a cigarette case was something new to me, especially a case of Soviet cigarettes. He took a long pull and continued, "So what can you tell me? And you? Otherwise it's a little unfair. No, it's quite fair, and right now the less you know, the less risk you pose to Himitsu if anything happens. Ryunosuke-san, she's not one of your agents to even be at risk. Doesn't change anything." I sighed heavily and thought about it. Telling him everything here and now meant acknowledging him as an ally, trusting a person that I had considered an enemy just a minute ago. Yeah, it didn't seem like he had much choice now. No matter what, he had to reconcile with the fact that Himitsu had chosen me. However, he had shown more than once he was ready to do anything to achieve his goals. And what will I get in return? Will you protect me from the Russians, the corporation? The corporation is no threat to you. I don't know the Russians' intentions. Yeah, right. I managed to lie twice in a short sentence without batting an eye. I want to be clear about one thing right away, Ryunosuke-san. Are we on the same side now? He took his time to answer my question. I am on Himitsu's side, so as long as she is on yours... It's hard to believe you when you talk like that. You don't have to believe me. The more soberly you view the situation, the better. So what do you know? My whole body tensed up. Something inside me, maybe my sixth sense, wouldn't let me tell him the entire truth. The Russians have contacted me several times and asked for some papers, documents, information about my father's work. But I know nothing about it. I already told you this, and I told them. Sorry, but I'm not ready to believe that the KGB are complete idiots. If they contacted you, they must have had their reasons. Reasons! I rolled my eyes. Looks like all of you, no matter the country, think that me being a Russian is enough of a reason. Give me a second. Okay. That does certainly play a certain role. Whatever my father was doing, I know nothing about it. I was listening to my own voice as if from outside myself. I was fervent and confident, even though I was lying. Perhaps Ryunosuke-san knew about these ballistic missiles, but so far was only a piece of information I could latch onto. Perhaps the only one that could save my life in the future. There was still the question of Irina, who would be waiting for my call. I was jumping into these spy games head-on again, forgetting about Himitsu. So what will happen to us? After finishing his cigarette, Ryunosuke-san wanted to drop the round on the ground, then remembered something and fearfully, like a child, cast a glance at the house and put out with his fingers. There was something so simple and understandable about the way he did it. I didn't just fear Himitsu's father, I also respected him. But he wasn't omnipotent. There were some questions he, too, had no answers for. There were situations that could confuse him and things that could scare him. So could he protect us? After all, the most important thing for me now was to be with Himitsu. No matter where, in Tokyo, surrounded by KGB spies and the corporation's agents, or here, drowning in the boredom of monotony of a Japanese village. I imagine Himitsu would prefer to go home. Yes, but... Or do you not want to return to Tokyo for some reason? His face became emotionless again, the professional expression of an experienced intelligence officer. I talked to Himitsu about it first. Decided to avoid giving a straight answer. Of course. Ryunosuke-san responded coldly and returned to the house. Before I came up with the proper words, Himitsu appeared on the doorstep. Nico-kun, what's the matter? Let's talk somewhere else. We walked some 30 meters away from the house. Nico-kun? She was blinking at me in surprise. Your father is offering to return us to Tokyo. That's great, isn't it? Yeah, great. On the one hand. Hang on, let me check something real quick. Okay, I think we're fine. I'm not sure if there's any choices, but... Well, let's just go. Keep on going. But people might be waiting for me there who I don't want to meet, and all these people might be waiting for you. Mitsu gave it a minute of thought, but then said confidently, Dad will protect us. I don't want to say anything bad about your father. Maybe I should have, though. A couple of hours ago, he was more or less threatening to kill me. but he also had his limits. Then what are we supposed to do? That's a good question. What are you going to do here alone? Well, I hadn't really thought about that. Himitsu lowered her eyes and blushed. What do you mean you hadn't thought about it? I thought that sooner or later things would sort themselves out. Are you serious? I exclaimed. Naturally, I never suspected Himitsu to be an outstanding strategist, but to be so passive and apathetic about her own fate was too much even for her. I was just very angry with you. She pouted and half turned from me. Blessed innocence, I said in Russian. She looked at me puzzled, but I said abruptly, never mind. So then I couldn't count on Himitsu. My only hope was that Ryunosuke-san would do everything he could to protect his daughter, and as for me, I could rely on myself, and deal with problems as they came. You're such a fool of mine. I pulled Himitsu closer, grabbed her by the waist, and kissed her. Nico-kun! She tried to push me away, weakly, more for the sake of decency. Don't worry, nobody's watching. Well, Tokyo it is then. I sighed. Packing up didn't take much time. It was obvious that Himitsu wasn't really planning to stay long, as she had only taken a few personal belongings with her. Perhaps I had overreacted, and it would have been better to just wait until she calmed down and forced her father to return home. Give me a second. Return home? No, screw those thoughts. I did everything right. I did exactly what I should have done, the only way that I could have been done. I guess in all my actions, and particularly my thoughts, you could see a clear tendency for a kind of martyrdom. Unconsciously, I was expecting myself to fail and get nailed to the cross by Ryunosuke-san, suffering in the name of something. And again, there was a spiritual simulacrum, the higher the feeling that was considered condescendingly laughing at everything mundane, worldly. In the name of love. To put it simply, I was positive that Himitsu would have been happier to know that I was alive but without her rather than dead for her sake. Besides, I managed to catch a couple of nikumans from her grandmother. We were going back to Tokyo, the provincial town having disappeared into the distance. The roadway went parallel to the railway, and I noticed once again how strikingly different were the views from the cars and the train's windows. Now that the trees on the roadside appeared as an impenetrable barrier, hiding some sort of treasure. I couldn't see the mountains behind them, and it felt like we were in some kind of lowland, a swamp. Mitsu put her head on my shoulders and fell asleep. Occasionally I would catch Ryunosuke-san's angry glances in the rearview mirror and smiled apologetically in return. His hands nervously fidgeting on the wheel, the experience, intelligence, or counterintelligence might be the correct term, I guess. Officer wasn't even trying to hide his opinions on the situation. I wonder what was making him more mad, the fact that Himitsu was snuggling up to me so openly without holding back, or that she was doing so in front of her own father, who was just presented with the facts of the situation and couldn't offer any objection. He shot me. When we reached the house, it was already dark. Himitsu barely managed to open her eyes and get out of the car. She answered Ryunosuke-san's silent question. I need to cook something for Nico-kun. It felt like the sigh that followed, seemingly containing all his fatherly disappointment and irritation, could be heard from by the entire neighborhood. I took my keys and gave them to her. I'll be right here. I'll be right there. Mitsu decided not to argue and left us alone. Ryunosuke-san. I suddenly felt a calm desire to call him Oto-san, face screwing up from barely containing laughter. Father. What about school? I'll handle it. It's surprisingly easy for you to change your daughter's school multiple times a week. It's not what's important now. But not for Himitsu. He sighed again, this time rather wearily. Nikolai, remember, you must tell me everything. Ryunosuke-san looked around and quickly strummed his fingers on the dash. Everything that happens about all contact with the KGB and others suspicious individuals. Suspicious individuals? Like who, for example? For example, you get me. Stop pretending to be an idiot. Not that I really did get him, but I could guess. You know, I look at you and I fail to understand what happened to you this past year. Your parents, I understand. Yes, it's a tragedy, especially for a child. Yes, you were left alone, but usually this makes people close up. Hold a grudge against the entire world, while you sighed again, apparently indicating that our conversation was over. Himitsu was making dinner, and too cheerfully, I thought. humming some pop tune. It was as if nothing had happened at all for her, as if this was a normal evening. I was sitting in front of the TV set, not paying much attention to what it was showing, chewing on a toothpick I'd found somewhere, and occasionally throwing glances at my new girlfriend. Ryunosuke-san told me that he'd handle everything about school. I guess Saya-chan will be happy. Yes, she replied briefly, keeping her eyes on the cutting board. Are you happy? Of course. Good then. I didn't want to start a serious discussion with Himitsu right now. It would take some time for her emotions to settle down. And I needed a breather to think everything through carefully. Your grandma's house is nostalgic. When was I there last? 7, 8 years ago? I guess so. It feels like nothing's changed. Well, nothing really has. I guess grandmas are the same everywhere. Although I don't remember my grandparents that well. I was too little, of course. My mom's parents were at the funeral. Nico-kun! She stopped cutting things. Don't worry, I'm alright. You remember them, right? I smiled. Yes. So, well, the conversation took a wrong turn. Of course it's going to be a little weird. First everyone is told that I'm going to study here, not going to study here anymore, and then whoop, I just come back. Turns out I was extremely hungry, but that's for the better. I wouldn't want to miss the school festival. To a degree, I agreed with Ryunosuke-san. School wasn't the main issue right now. Nico-kun? Why, yeesh? I mumbled with my mouth full. You're not listening to me at all. You're like a dentist asking the patients questions in the middle of a procedure. Himitsu pouted, and everything became normal again, as if the hardships and sorrows of the past days never happened, as if Himitsu hadn't gone anywhere, and I hadn't been running after her through the magical forest, fleeing from her own father. Just a bit tired. My psyche wasn't prepared for all these shocks. Everything is going to be alright. She took me by the hand, suddenly moved so much that I felt I was about to cry. I looked aside so she wouldn't notice. And even if everything was way too complicated, my only wish for now is to make this moment last forever. I love you. Have I told you that? I don't really remember. Himitsu made a serious face, but couldn't hold it for long and laughed. I pulled her to me and kissed her, and it was our first real kiss. I was lying in bed and thinking about the future. Today, one page of my life turned over, giving place to something new. It seemed there were lots of words, paragraphs, and punctual marks, but all of them combined into a single blurry mirage, as it was merely one of the paths the future could allow, and all the black symbols on the white parchment of our lives would take their form and become forever fixed in eternity later, when we write them down with our actions. Oh, we made it to the next day. Wow. Soon the date on the calendar would change to October, and October would follow September. My life, meanwhile, had already changed. Yesterday I couldn't fall asleep, running through what had happened over and over again in my head. Later in the night, my dark thoughts returned, whispering to me about how the KGB and the corporation don't give a damn about our love, and how Ryunosuke-san isn't omnipotent. But the day started as usual, and it's exactly what I expected. The garden door creaking, the chill morning breeze blowing lightly, a slight touch of lips, and a cute whisper over my ear. Wake up, sleepyhead! I opened my eyes and immediately grabbed Himitsu by the hands, pulling her in and making her fall on me. Nico-kun, we're late for school! I was exploring her body greedily with my hands, like a newborn explores everything new. Nico-kun! As much as I wanted to continue, I realized it would be best not to hurry. We were just beginning to get to know each other in our new roles. Breakfast turned out to be rather normal. Eggs, toast, and some bacon. Himitsu had also made a bento. She had woken up at least an hour earlier than me again. Today I was really grateful for that. Thank you, but you haven't even eaten yet. Just thank you for existing. At first she didn't seem to understand, but then smiled. In some special new way. I'm not going anywhere. Had Ryunosuke-san said anything? No, why? Just curious. Most likely one day I'll have to tell her that her father had somewhat different plans for me just the previous day. Nico-kun, everything's going to be alright. She repeated the word like a mantra. So long as you believe it, that's what's most important. Don't you? I believe you. Nico-kun! Her eyes lit up and I suddenly imagined that we were characters in some sort of high school soap opera. A guy confesses his love to a girl, having overcome all barriers set up by the script and destroyed every paper-thin obstacle. Camera, action! The roof of a school and the close-up of the main characters kissing against the sunset. Credits roll! We're never shown what happens to them next. Perhaps the next morning the girl will get off on the wrong foot of her hitter, and the guy will snap at her. What percentage of school romances survive the stage of infatuation? Nico-kun really didn't know what to do next. With Catherine, it had been different. Easier, I guess. It's always easier to erect a new building than try to fix an old one. Even more so to rebuild it completely into something else. Aren't you afraid that, well, this won't work out for us? The what? Himitu was battling her big green eyes. Batting. Was she not even allowed herself to think about it? Never mind. Hey, stop hanging. I tore off a piece of bread and threw it at her. It's a sin to throw food. Sin? Really? I laughed and imagined Himitu in a shawl holding candles in her hands. Her face wasn't that Asian, and if I really looked at it, children are starving in Africa. How's that our fault? It's not our fault, but it's not nice. It's just not nice to do that. Fine. I quickly made an airplane out of the napkin, but it didn't even make it a meter before crashing into the table. See? The plane carrying humanitarian aid crashed into the Monaglian step. Nico-kun, you're incorrigible. Do you want me to be corrigible? Himitu took her time to reply, and the surprise on her face changed to thoughtfulness, then embarrassment. No. Why? Because then I would need to love some other Nico-kun, and I already love you. What an interesting syllogism. What? Jism. Gizmo, like in the Gremlins, remember? Would you like to have a real one? No. Himitu replied, frowning as if she was offended by something. But he's so cute, little, fluffy, clever, and makes monsters if he gets wet. But it's not his fault. Cats are also little and fluffy and safe. I wonder what Catherine would have said. I didn't even remember her here. I think she would have just smirked. Well, alright, cats are also an option. I agreed. I felt like we hadn't gone to school together for eternity. Himitu was waltzing and smiling at the weak September sunlight. It seemed that for her, she'd hit her goal in life, and there was nothing left to pursue anymore, only enjoy. If only I had her carelessness. Looking at her, I was also filled with a new for me feeling of serenity, a complete unfamiliar feeling of simple happiness, which only needs you to be with the person you love. Love. I obviously needed to get to know it all over again. If you walked into class like that, you won't even have to tell Saya-chan anything. It's written all over your face. Will you tell Kyosuke-san? Well, I haven't really thought about it. I grew embarrassed. Nico-kun. She stopped and looked at me in the eyes. I mean, there's nothing to hide here, but just shouting it from the rooftops. Besides, we're talking about Kyosuke. He'll find everything out before anybody else all on his own. Nico-kun. She quickly laughed. I'm just joking. You and your jokes. You and your flippin' joke. As we were approaching the school gate, we saw Catherine walking in our direction. Himitu immediately took me by the arm and pulled me closer as hard as she could. Seeing that, Catherine gave an exaggerated huff, turned her nose up, and quickened her pace. Heh. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to say anything, and luckily, somebody shouted from the schoolyard. Here they are! I told you. I looked at Himitu and smiled apologetically. Well, I should go. See you later. Himitu said quickly and ran away. Nick, I want to know everything in detail. Kyosuke exclaimed, running up to me. Is Himitu-chan? There isn't much to tell. I carefully put my arm around his shoulders and dragged him into the lockers, especially that loudly. Well, you two don't seem to be trying to hide anything. He giggled disgustingly. Had this really been the first time Himitu held me by the arm at school? No, it couldn't be. What makes you think that? Come on, you already admitted it. Also, what about that situation, you know? What situation? One we discussed on Friday. I did borrow money from Kyosuke, and he might have saved my life by lending it to me. The thought made me feel guilty. Oof, well, it's a bit of a long story. Not the best place to tell it either. Let's talk about this later. My friend nodded in understanding. I sighed heavily, just like Ryunosuke-san the other day, and went to change my shoes. Classes started somehow too routinely for me. Of course, I wasn't too happy to be at school, but I also couldn't say I felt weird here. Besides, Kyosuke wasn't trying to talk to me during class. No one could stop him during recess, though. During lunch, I took out my bento, opened it, and saw carefully packed rice with pieces of boiled carrot in the shape of a heart. I slammed the box shut. Do you have a minute? Michael approached me, his face as emotionless as ever. Take a seat. Let's eat together. I meant a minute in private. All right. I wasn't enthusiastic about the prospect of showing my bento to the entire class anyway, especially to Kyosuke. We walked to the yard, distracted by hearts and stuff. It didn't take long. I didn't take any time to think about what he wanted to talk about, although it was pretty obvious. I saw you two in the morning. Spying on me, are you? I said without showing much interest and sat on the bench. I assume you've already made your choice? Apparently so. Frankly, I didn't want to go through all this again, and you didn't even think to tell me about it, did you? No, why would I? I've already told you that I need your answer about Catherine. I get it. I interrupted him. Here's my answer. Happy now? I looked him straight in the eye. Michael didn't grow even a tad embarrassed. Nick, you should have considered her feelings too. That concern is yours now. Nick, I'm tired of all this talk. There's something you weren't satisfied with. Nobody's in your way now. What else do you need to be happy? Do you require some special permission from me? A blessing maybe? A written agreement? I got mad again, but to be fair, Michael was behaving sort of strangely too. Obviously some things in his life are self-explanatory. So anything to say? He was standing there and giving me a piercing look. It was if somebody else had been in this place, I would have said the look contained more resentment than anything else. A low-flying group of storm clouds were approaching from the seaside. It was about to catch up to the sun, which seemed to be running away from it to the west, absorb it, and fly on, hiding everything on its way in darkness. Suddenly, it seemed to me there was nothing on the other side of the wall of clouds, just absolute emptiness. The annihilation of being itself and the actual end of the world are usually considered pure evil, but how can nothingness have any intentions that could fit into the framework of human morality? You seem to be standing your ground. Oh, Misha. I muttered in Russian. Be happy together, and best of luck to you both. I grabbed his hand and shook it firmly, and returned to the school. So I had to handle the issue of my bento. Didn't have to search for Himitsu for long. She was in her classroom talking to friends. I called her over with a nod. She immediately stood up, quickly said something about to them, and almost ran to me. Nico-kun! Yeah, hi, have you had lunch yet? No. Let's go to... Michael was in the yard, so the only place left would be... Anyway, let's just go. We walked to the roof, but turned out to not be alone there either. Oh, Kagome was standing before us, leaning on the rails and observing the approaching snowstorm front. She heard the creak of the door, jumped, and turned around. For a moment, I saw surprise and some sort of childlike innocence on her face. I stared unwittingly at her, as you might stare at the first spring flowers pushing through the snow. Pushing through the snow. But for Himitsu, that single moment was enough. I instantly felt a supernova about to be born right next to me. Meanwhile, Kagome came back to reality and quickly headed for us. Wait, what now? Just want to tell you that we're fine now. Happy for you, she said as if trying to wave away a nasty gnat. What about you? Found your father? Kagome gave me a piercing look for a few seconds before replying. Yes, I have, without your help. Well, sorry, I had my own problems. Problems? She smirked and looked at Himitsu. If I were you, I wouldn't be sure that everything will end so easily. It wasn't clear whether Kagome was addressing me or Himitsu. What are you talking about? Doesn't matter. She grumbled and squeezed past me to the door. I thought there was more to say and it bothered me. Wanted to stop her, but Himitsu grabbed me by the hand and shook her head. What? But, let her go. If you think that she and I just wanted, in case she knows something. Nico-kun, calm down. She doesn't know anything. She just wanted to irritate you. Himitsu looked unusually serious. You just don't know her. Iwamura usually doesn't waste words. Oh, don't you know her a little too well? Me? I don't. Nico-kun, relax. I'm joking. Let's eat. By the way, about that, we sat on the bench and I opened my bento. Did you want to turn me into a laughingstock? What do you mean? Don't you understand? Pointed my finger at the shape made of carrot. Never did that before. Well, now I do. Should have warned me. I grumbled and packed up my chopsticks. There was indeed nothing unusual about the bento, and nobody but Kyosuke would probably pay attention to it. But Kagome's words refused to leave my head. Of course, Himitsu might have been right. but Iwamura had found her father too quickly and easily. I really wanted her to hear her story in detail. So what did Saya-chan say? About my return? Well, she was surprised, and the other girls too. They were going to visit me over the weekend. Yeah, just gotta be careful not to get lost in the forest. In the forest? It's nothing. There's this magical forest next to your place. Is this another joke? Sort of. Oh, we don't have any plans after school. Of course not. Why would I? Then, she stumbled, blushed, and lowered her eyes. You went to visit a woman's clothing store, just say it. There's nothing to be shy about here. No, I wanted to go on a date. What? I heard what she had said, but seemed to not understand it. Since we're dating officially now, I want you to take me on a real date, she blurted out. Oh, I see. Alright. I shrugged. What do people usually do on a real date? Hadn't been on one for so long that I'd already forgotten. Hey, show more enthusiasm. Yes, ma'am. I saluted to her. That's better. We finished our meals and returned to the classrooms. Spent the remaining time before the end of class thinking of what I should arrange for Himitsu. Sure, I could use scenarios from when I had been dating Catherine, but that somehow seemed unfair. Cinema! The thought suddenly occurred to me. Love seats. Hadn't ever seen or heard of someone actually kissing or doing anything more risque in the last row of seats in a cinema. Himitsu was embarrassed by even the slightest display of affection in public, and doing something like that at a movie theater was out of the question. Then the only thing left was... Wow! Himitsu exclaimed and span around. I'd only just recently been to the amusement park, so her reaction was more of an attempt to cheer me up and let me know I'd made the right choice. Just remember, a shell never falls from in the same crater twice. What do you mean? I mean that I can't win anything for you today, even if you believe that Elephant needs a girlfriend. Nico-kun! She laughed and took me by the hand. What if we're lucky? Have you ever held a gun in your hands? No, but there's a first time for everything. Anyway, my elephant seemed to be doing just fine on his own. We were passing by the ghost house. Couldn't believe that just 2 weeks ago Himitsu had ran out of it in tears. It was surprising that so much could happen in such a short period of time, more than during the year and a half before it. A person's life is like Morse code, a dash line, except some have longer dashes than others. Do you want to go for a roller coaster ride? No way, I'd get dizzy. Maybe a merry-go-round then. Hitsu gave it some thought. Aren't we too old for that? It's kind of weird to hear that from you. Let's go on the Ferris wheel instead. Sure. Yay! Ferris wheel! We bought the tickets and sat in the cabin. Why do they even call it a devil's wheel, I wonder? Name is colloquial in Russian. There are several versions of it in origin. Laborers had to work 24/7 before the park's opening to put the wheel together. Named it after this devilish work. According to another, the earlier version of these wheels' constructions were unsafe and riding them would often result in injuries. Sheesh. I never suffered from claustrophobia, but occasionally experienced the fear of heights. But not just any height, somehow I was selective about it. Wasn't scared of falling into a chasm from atop a mountain, yet was afraid to stand out on the balcony of a 20-something floor. Maybe it was about the probability. How many people die a year from falling from a cliff? How many just jump off a house roof? L'appel du vide, the irrational desire to jump down. The call of the void. Good that these cabins were fully enclosed. Well, now that we are in the apogee... What? Well, if we assume that the Earth isn't round... I was talking absolute drivel and couldn't stop. Was I? Embarrassed to be alone with Himitsu? After all, this wasn't that different from what we were usually doing. Sorry, it's simply again. Ionosuke-san had been right about that. We're talking about a real date, but I feel like I'm not handling it well. Why? Well, how is it any different from what we usually do? On a real date, people should do something. I don't know, more interesting. Himitsu smiled. Nico-kun, stop being silly. Any date with you is a real one, because I love you. And even if we were watching the TV at home, that would have been a real date too. Come on now. I grew visibly embarrassed. Oh. Himitsu breathed on the window and traced out in Russian with her finger. Nico-kun plus Himitsu equals love. Now it's definitely real. I wanted to immediately leap to Himitsu and kiss her, but misjudged my strength and sent the cabin swinging. Nico-kun! Sorry, I'll keep myself under control. Although I have to admit it's becoming harder and harder. added slyly. I want to do so much for you. Nico-kun! It was Himitsu's turn to get embarrassed. Like bring you to the cinema after this. To the cinema? She livened up. Yes, I want to watch that film. Because of all the mayhem happening in my real life, I hadn't really had time to watch it. Sounds interesting, but I need to stop by home first. Let's go then. It's the only way. Half an hour later, having changed my clothes, I was standing on the street and waiting for Himitsu. Love was in the air, making me lightheaded. I was getting more and more drunk on it and didn't want to stop. However, my common sense was telling me that I tended to jump to absolutes, while Himitsu didn't at all. She was accustomed to a steady pace of life, so hormonal surges and blind passion weren't really her thing. So suddenly, I felt a bit uncomfortable, as if I saw her as some sort of frigid nun, especially compared to... Nico-kun! How long do you notice anything? I looked at her carefully. Did you cut your hair? Hey, I'm serious. I looked at her more attentively. Nothing. I don't know, honestly. I always like that. I try hard to prepare for a real day, but it's the same old. Well, tell me what this is about, and next time Nothing. Let's go. Oh. All would have been well and good, but I totally forgotten Himitsu didn't like over-the-top action movies either. Not just horror. And this was just that kind of film. A belligerent alien landed on our planet to hunt people. Himitsu grabbed my arm from the very first minute and didn't let go until the end. The predacious alien was slicing up everyone left and right without mercy or compassion. But as often happens in American films, there was a brave, muscular man character who cut the beast to ribbons in the end. I wondered. Good had defeated evil again, and common sense for good measure, but that predator was way too cunning. It systematically stalked humans, laying in ambush for a long time in order to strike its victims at the right moment with one precise move. Just like Catherine. Jesus. She had it all planned, starting from the virtually forcing me to call her, to pushing herself into coming over, to staying at my place overnight, to then opening the door for Himitsu. But why Katya? Why? While Himitsu was shuddering at every sound effect, I was paying less and less attention to what was happening on the screen. Was it revenge? Perhaps a devious plan? Her mother's orders? Weirdly, I felt I was more disappointed than mad with Catherine. It is probably how the parents of a naughty child feel when their son gets expelled from school for the 5th time. Oh, Katya. Katya! And just like those hypothetical parents, I simply gave up on her. I've already bidded you farewell. The film ended when we were standing near the cinema building. Himitsu was pale and seemingly frightened by something. Nico-kun! What's up? You didn't tell me it would be a horror film. Well, it's not a horror film. Yeah? Okay then. She said it in a trembling voice. If you ever decide to bring me to a real horror film, just let me know in advance. I'll write my will. The sun was setting when we approached home. Do you want to come by? Nico-kun, Dad would be angry. She responded playfully. Yeah. Then we spent a too long time kissing, forgetting about everything, including the fact that we could be seen from the windows of her house, and we were standing in the middle of the street, so the neighbors could be watching us. I got so excited that I didn't want to let her go, but Himitsu effortlessly freed herself from my embrace. See you tomorrow, she said in a new voice, one that I was extremely unfamiliar with. I hurried to my place to attend to the call of nature. Can I check something real quick? Just give me a second. Okay. Just give me a second. Okay. In different circumstances, and hey, number 13th. How you doing today? It's good to see ya. Welcome to another stream of love, money, and rock and roll. How you doing? It's good to see ya. Something was wrong immediately. In your own room, you instantly notice any little difference and any discrepancy or change. That time it was a breeze, even though I definitely closed the garden door. A woman was standing in the kitchen with her back turned to me, smoking, blowing clouds into the yard. Wait, who's this? Hearing my footsteps, she turned around. It was Catherine's mother. Nikolai, I have been waiting for you. Sorry for being overly familiar. She dropped the cigarette right on the floor and quickly crushed it with her shoe. You're downloading Fortnite? Ooh, nice. Gonna play it a lot and get some sick wins and stuff? I wish you luck on it, number 13th. Take a seat. She closed the door and approached the table. Now that was very much like Miss Winters. What the hell was she doing here? Felt a threat coming from her. An even greater one, considering that she clearly wasn't here to perform her diplomatic duties. What do you need? I asked coldly, trying not to show any anxiety, but sat down nonetheless. You surprised? Strange. I never thought you would be expecting my visit, after everything my daughter has told me. I don't know what Catherine told you. I have to wait 18 hours? Oh god, that's a long time. Hopefully the actual time will be less. Slightly, very less. Is that so? You haven't changed a bit over the years, but the time for games is over. You better cooperate with us voluntarily. Not only will it save me a lot if time, it will also help you avoid unnecessary problems. Who is us exactly? Mrs. Winters rolled her eyes and pulled out another cigarette, but after a moment, put it back into the pack. We are aware that you gave your parents' documents to Japanese intelligence. They are also of interest to us. And now you will tell me what the contents of them were, how far the Japanese have progressed, and so on. Whatever she was thinking, it was obvious that Catherine's mother believed that I knew more than I really did. Much more. But why exactly? Mrs. Winters, you've come to the wrong person. Nikolai. She smirked. I doubt that the KGB and the Japanese bought it, so why do you think so little of me? I don't know what Catherine told you, but you can be sure that I don't have any documents. Catherine. Her again. This is just because she's jealous. Jealousy? Really? So you're naive enough to think that after what you've done to my daughter, she would still be jealous of you? Or in other words, still have feelings for you? Is that what you think, Nikolai? Mrs. Winters' cold, intense look was piercing me to the bone. Hey, welcome back, Mafia Babe. It was 17 hours left before. Oh no. Welcome back, Mafia Babe. Good news, I'm with Himitsu. We're dating right now. Things are looking good. Bad news, Catherine's mom is here now. And apparently she works for the bad people. Not very polite for a diplomat. The good thing about diplomacy is that it allows parties to find a compromise, to give up on certain points to preserve something more important. And now you have the opportunity, Nikolai. I was started staring at her without looking away, although it might be more accurate to say that Mrs. Winters was hypnotizing me like a cobra. That's nice. Which thing is nice? Is it all nice? She saw right through me, as if into my soul, and I couldn't find the strength to tell her a single persuasive lie. I will tell you what I've told everyone else. I know nothing about my parents' work. They left me no documents. Well, this was to be expected. Why do you hate Catherine so much? Hate? I exhaled warily, and I, the idiot, thought it was the opposite. Just so you know, Catherine had already tried to turn me against Himitsu. Now it looks like after she realized it didn't work, she turned to extreme measures. Let's be serious. I won't tell you anything, because I don't know anything, and I won't give you anything because I have nothing. So what are you going to do? For some reason, you're convinced you're in no danger. Do you trust the Japanese to protect you? I wondered who or what she meant, the corporation or Ryunosuke-san, but asking her that would have been stupid. I kept pretending to be an oblivious high school kid. I trust in your common sense. You should have thought about that earlier when you... She grit her teeth and for a moment her face shifted to a grimace of anger. When I what? Nikolai, if you aren't worried about yourself, you should at least think about your girlfriend. Don't you dare! I exclaimed. She had nothing to do with it. If you need a scapegoat, I alone am enough. Well, isn't that a change of attitude? Mrs. Winter's smile was more terrifying than her threats. You probably think I'm a monster, but I'm just trying to find the best solution for everyone. And it's within your power to help find a way out of the situation. You might not believe me, but I'm doing it for your sake as well. No matter what Catherine had done in the past, she had never been such a hypocritical bitch. I felt disgusted, almost to the point of vomiting, to be in the same room as this woman. Even the air itself started to feel stale, heavy, and foul-smelling. I turned away. Don't you feel disgusted to get up every morning and look at yourself in the mirror? Why would I? God, and to imagine there was a time I thought she was better than Himitsu's father. I don't have any documents, and I don't know anything. Fine, Nikolai, it's your call. She stood up abruptly and pulled out a cigarette pack and drew one. But I still want to give you one last chance. Well, we will return to this conversation in 24 hours. I really hope that's enough time for you to make the right decision. When the door closed after her, I wearily leaned on the table and exhaled so strongly that it seemed like I'd been holding my breath for several minutes. Yes, Catherine had most likely told her something, but she couldn't know about Japanese intelligence or the fact that Irina demanded documents from me. Did she just blatantly lie to her mother as a way of taking revenge on me? Or maybe Mrs. Winters and the Americans have been watching me. Ichinose hadn't mentioned it, but neither had Irina or even Ryunosuke-san. My number of enemies grew by the second. You'd assume that after this I would hate Catherine, but strangely enough, that wasn't the case. Nothing but an old, scarred wound was left in my heart in place of my former love for her. Maybe it wasn't her fault after all, but her mother's threats were more than real. I needed to do something about them. I looked out the window, but it was quiet and deserted outside. Nikolai, remember, you have to tell me everything. Well, I had no choice. I had no one else to turn to anyway. I quickly dialed Himitsu's number. Of course, she was still awake, so this was the only way. I got lucky. Ryunosuke-san answered the call. Hello? It's Nikolai. We need to talk. I'll be there in 2 minutes. He replied briefly and hung up. Those 2 minutes were painfully long. It was hard to admit that the person who had betrayed my trust had also become my only hope. Had I ever really trusted Ryunosuke-san? I didn't know. But at least I never expected any trickery from him, and definitely never thought he was spying on my parents. And then, after they died, on me. A knock came at the door. It's interesting in how every person knocks in their own way. Ryunosuke did it firmly, with clear intervals between knocks, strongly, but not too much so, like a metronome. I opened the door and stepped inside, inviting him to come in. Himitsu? He shook his head in a negative. Could I say that I was hiding the truth from her again, if I was about to tell her father what had happened? Ryunosuke-san walked to the kitchen, stopped and looked at me expectantly. Maybe you'd like some tea? I mumbled stupidly and instantly felt awkward. What happened, Nikolai? Catherine's mother, Mrs. Winters, came to my place. She believed that I gave you Japanese intelligence, some kind of documents related to my parents' work. And she's demanding these documents from me, and Ryunosuke-san didn't react to my words in any way. It was like he was listening to a weather forecast. She was threatening me. She said that I have 24 hours to give her the documents or tell her what's in them. So what's in them? God damn it. I lost control. How many times do I need to repeat that I have no idea about these documents you all go on about? I never seen or heard of them. Nikolai, calm down. Anger won't help. I'm just tired. I understand, but I still ask you to calm down. Ryunosuke-san, what do you know about Mrs. Winters? I knew that she had some kind of connection to the project, but telling him that would mean incriminating Ichinose. Stretch. I hope he was still alive. Himitsu's father took his time to reply. Not a single day has passed and you've already gotten into trouble. Oh, will you play Kingdom Hearts today? Yes, you will, number 13. Not by choice. Yes, you shouldn't blindly trust her. Trust? I smirked powerlessly and sat on the chair. It's not a matter of trust. It's like my entire life is turning upside down. It turns out I don't really know who's who. Say Mrs. Winters, I thought she was an ordinary diplomat. Well, you weren't wrong. Finally, something resembling worry crossed his face. It just so happens that there are different kinds of diplomats and they can use different means to achieve their goals. So you want to say that? For now, I only want to say that the Americans also interested in your parents' work. So what should I do now? Doesn't look like next time she'll be satisfied with my explanations. And really, why didn't he leave Himitsu in the village? Yes, the situation isn't great. Ryunosuke-san, to be honest, I was hoping for something more practical than not great. You see, Nikolai, when it comes to Americans, speaking his words carefully, my hands are tied. Apparently he decided that I deserve to know the truth. Or maybe that I deserve the truth. So there's nothing you, Ryunosuke-san. She also mentioned Himitsu, told me that I should worry about her as well. They're just empty threats. You weren't so confident about her safety yesterday. Nikolai, I'll think about how to help you. He sighed and closed his eyes. But in any case, you shouldn't do anything on your own. But if they wanted to harm you, they wouldn't have talked to you, especially in your house. Well, they couldn't argue with that. But what would stop them from continuing this conversation in a place they like better? I don't want to lie to you, Nikolai. Ryunosuke-san, just tell me honestly, can you help me? I need to think. She said you have 24 hours. You don't have to worry about that, for at least, that. Easy for you to say. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. When you two come back from school, By then I should know how to help you. And if that's all, I shrugged and saw him out the door. Such drama, am I right, Mafia babe? So much drama. Dim stars appeared in the sky, very different from the ones in the village at night. These ones looked like specks of dust on a dark TV screen. Their lights were similarly blurry and distorted, but fully compensated by the illumination of the metropolis. Ryunosuke's son was leaving something out and wasn't even trying to hide it. Most likely he was trying to tell me that I was in real danger and couldn't expect any help from him. Life's a bitch. A bottle of whiskey was standing on the table in front of me. Next to it stood a glass filled with 2 fingers of amber liquid. It has been standing there for a good half an hour now. Hadn't taken a single sip, and in the meanwhile, the clock was telling me that this night had come to its end. A midnight bird was singing a nasty tune outside, as if protesting against something. Perhaps Ryunosuke-san was even relieved by this situation somehow. He had an opportunity to take me out of the equation without getting his hands dirty, so I couldn't count on him, could I? But Catherine's mother was also threatening Himitsu. Of course, she could have been just trying to put pressure on me. Maybe Ryunosuke-san was right. After all, if they wanted, they could have just gotten everything they wanted out of me by force. The bird went quiet, and then I heard some weird noises coming from the garden, as if someone was trying to sneak through the bushes. I put myself on guard and started listening in. Rustling was becoming louder, and soon turned into a sound of footsteps. I found a knife by feel and tightened its grip. Didn't even have time to think of what I'd do next. Nikolai! Someone was calling me quietly. I froze and held my breath. Suddenly, Ichinose appeared in the doorway to the garden, nervous and breathless. Ichinose-san! I exhaled with an effort. Almost gave me a heart attack. He sat across from me and slowly wiped the sweat off his forehead with a handkerchief. I got a call and I thought it was you, but a woman from the KGB came instead, I thought. Yes, Nikolai, they got to me. Thank God I managed to leave virtually a minute before they showed up. I need to flee from Tokyo now, but before that I decided to come and give. He took a thick folder tied with cord out of his bag. You this. What is this? Document I managed to take from work. Documents about the project. It's unlikely Japanese intelligence would be interested in them, unlike the KGB. Wait, so these are the documents they've been hunting? Today Mrs. Winters came to me and demanded some documents as well. God damn them. Is this it? Ichinose was staring at the whiskey, and I pushed the glass to him without prompting. The old man took a sip and smiled. Your father knew his whiskey. Ichinose-san? All right, sorry, I didn't know what the Russians are looking for exactly, not to mention the Americans. They're also part of the project, and logically should know everything that Kobayashi Corporation does. This is only my own work. I was in contact with American physicists, and while working on the project, so... Of course, I still needed to deal with Irina somehow, but Catherine's mother had promised to return as early as tomorrow. Then what did the Americans want from me? I don't know, Nikolai. He responded slowly, even with a hint of irritation in his voice. And you also can't tell me anything else about Miss Winters? No, the only reason I'm here right now is because I still feel indebted to your father, but I know nothing about her. Sorry. He was telling the truth, I was sure about that. There's nothing to apologize for. By the way, thanks for the whiskey. Ichinose-san came closer to me and firmly shook my hand. Farewell. And then he disappeared into the night. I was listening to the night's silence long after that, with a beating on my heart the only sound to break it. So the documents. I was flipping through them, peering into the endless rows of numbers and formulas, but understood absolutely nothing. There were graphs showing speed, preliminary orbits, and trajectories. The only thing I could figure out was that they were going to launch something somewhere. But I get about the same results trying to decipher Egyptian hieroglyphs. My eyes were closing on their own, and each time it was getting more and more difficult to open them again. Finally, I hid the folder under the porch. In my childhood, I would bury Himitsu's dolls there, and nobody ever found them. It was a safe place, and tomorrow I could decide what to do next. My bed beckoned me, and I felt as if I was floating on tender, milky waves and falling steeper and deeper into the soft fluff of dreams. Whew, I can't believe there was so much story after this. We're still going. We're still flipping going. I was dreaming that Himitsu and I were marooned on a deserted island, but not like the one described in Defoe's novels. You could say that it was a 5-star one, with a restaurant, a bar, a huge bed, bathrooms, and even a movie theater. Except there were no other people but us. The food, as often as it happens in dreams, appeared by itself. The weather was perfect. There were no tropical rains or monsoons whatsoever. I was drinking wine and couldn't get drunk. It had absolutely sweet taste you'd never find in real life. Sugary, savory, overwhelming, and addictive like a drug. Heavy pink fog covered everything before my eyes. My movements were slow and smooth, as if I were doing gymnastics in water. I'd get instantly teleported from the bar to the roller coasters. But even there it felt like I was swimming on them, like wood chip on waves. And I went up to the sky and flew. A skyscraper appeared on the other side of the island. I fluttered into an open window and found myself in Himitsu's arms. We were making love to each other, slowly and meticulously, as if we have done so many times. But then somebody was knocking loudly and persistently on the door, again and again. Irina stormed into the room and started shouting something in a language I didn't know. I turned to Himitsu, but she disappeared, and Catherine was lying in her place and giving me a devilish smile. I was terrified, overwhelmed by a primal fear, and as her eyes gleamed brighter and brighter, I could see the fires of hell through them. Catherine's mother appeared in Irina's place. She was smiling the same exact way as her daughter. Then they vanished completely, but everything was filled with their eyes, flaming with the primal evil and anger of those banished from heaven. That's good. In films, we often see the main character wake up in the middle of the night and abruptly sit up in bed, covered in cold sweat and gasping for air. Of course, stuff like this also happens in real life, but extremely rarely. I didn't know if I had a nightmare, but despite the fact that I could still remember the horror I experienced in the dream, I woke up feeling pretty alright. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, which meant that I still had about an hour to finish watching my dream, although the thoughts that started swarming in my head were with an insane intensity kept me from it. My memories of yesterday became clearer by the moment. They had to meet Mrs. Winters again. There was no reason to think that she would just give up. Ryunosuke-san couldn't help, regardless of whether he didn't want to or wasn't able to. And there was Irina, who also expected something from me. Now was definitely a good time to start panicking. I got up, walked into the garden wearing just my pants, shivering at the morning chill. Drops of dew gleamed on the grass, looking as if a cut glass carpet lay at my feet, so fragile that the first step onto it would shatter the whole thing to pieces. I stepped down from the porch and felt a pleasant chill under my feet. The sun was starting its workday behind the roofs in the east, shining almost reluctantly as if doing a heavy duty. The year must have tired it out too. I washed myself, brushed my teeth, walked into the kitchen, and froze in front of the fridge. Was Himitsu going to cook something in the morning, perhaps? Then it would make sense to wait for her. On the other hand, it was such a stupid thought. So I didn't put the kettle on the stove. If Catherine's mother came again, I'd give her those documents. Screw them. Maybe that was what she wanted, but I had nothing else. Maybe she'd see that I was willing to cooperate and leave me alone. When I brewed the tea, the front door opened quietly and Himitsu appeared in the kitchen. "Nico-kun, you're already up." It was indeed weird. "Good morning." "That's good. Unexpected, though." She looked at the 2 cups that were standing on the table in front of me, then at the stove. "Well, let's have breakfast." Her voice sounded unsure. Was she really that surprised? Himitsu was cooking something, while I was sitting motionlessly, drinking tea and thinking about the imminence of death. Strange thing to think about for an 18-year-old school kid. But it's stupid to ignore what you know is coming. Truly didn't want to drag Himitsu into this. For the last few weeks, my desire to protect her from literally everything was fighting with a somewhat unhealthy need to be fully honest with her. "Nico-kun, you're not yourself this morning." I just had a very weird dream, a postmodern one in a sense. About what? I don't really remember. You know when you've forgotten a dream but still feel the aftertaste of it? She didn't believe it. In order to avoid continuing this conversation, I turned the TV on. Another young politician was standing for election. Another corrupt official had been caught. Another big car accident with dozens of victims. Cool. And as if somewhere inside the TV set, right behind the kinescope, there was a production line making and broadcasting the same stories. I wonder if these people really existed. If they would still have died if I had not turned on the TV today at 7 o'clock in the morning. Maybe it was just an instant use set for real life. From Kobayashi Corporation, one item, 999 yen, with a 30% discount. As an everyday ready-to-use set of events, just add water, necessary volume of well-balanced information, noise that contain the required amount of vitamins, and trace elements. A plate of omurice landed on the table in front of me with a loud bang. Japanese dish contained of an omelet made with fried rice and then fried scrambled eggs. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, that sounds so good. I would definitely eat that. Topped with ketchup. I can't believe I'm saying this, but you should have slept more. Himitsu looked displeased. Maybe. And by the way, Nico-kun, thanks for buying plates. No problem. Why would she need to thank me for that? Breaking dishes really helps. Break as many as you want. I felt a bit embarrassed and even uncomfortable being alone with her. Well, within reason, I'm not doing very well financially right now. What's wrong with your finances? Himitsu was immediately alerted. Yeah, that was another thing I needed to discuss with Ryunosuke-san. My life had suddenly become much too focused on him, and I wasn't too eager to show initiative, but this definitely wasn't a matter worth hiding. Due to unknown causes, my bank account has been frozen. Nico-kun? Yeah, not the most pleasant situation ever. I'll talk to Dad, she said with determination. I'm sure he can help you. Sure, thank you. I wish he'd help me stay alive first. A dead man needs no possessions. Only then did I notice that Himitsu had drawn a heart in my omelet with ketchup. Anyway, to other matters. I took the bottle, slowly came to Himitsu, and carefully drew something that more resembled a triangle on her plate. Sorry, I draw about as well as I cook. She just wrapped her arms around my neck and pulled me close to her without saying a word. We were kissing for so long, the food got cold. Of course I wanted to go further, but Himitsu pushed me away lightly and said quietly, "Be late for school." It was much warmer outside, as September was giving us its farewell smile. We met Saya-chan at the gate. Together again? She smirked in place of a greeting. We're always together. Sure. She cast a glance at me. He might not be that much of a jerk after all, senpai. Saya-chan! I'll take that as a compliment. Think what you will, but I need to steal Himitsu from you. She grabbed Himitsu by the arm and dragged her along. I wanted to kiss her goodbye. I didn't care that we were in the middle of the schoolyard, surrounded by a crowd of acquaintances and strangers. But Saya-chan was faster than that. See you. That was the only thing I managed to say, and Himitsu waved her hand and smiled, putting all her love into it. The day started well. So I loved Himitsu. Everything else aside, I had to somehow live with that. In reality, it's not enough to just confess your love and know that it's mutual. A lot of work lay ahead. Work something always stood in the way of. Catherine appeared in the classroom right before the bell and walked to her desk without looking at anyone. I didn't turn around, but I could feel her staring at my back. To be frank, I didn't expect Katya to come to school after what had happened. I had every reason to blame her. Yesterday, Catherine saw me and Himitsu together and clearly indicated that she wasn't happy about it. The same evening, I found her mother in my kitchen. The casual link in the sequence of events was a little too obvious. I really held myself back until the break and approached her desk right after the bell rang. We need to talk. Now. I said quietly, but in a tone that clearly indicated that I wouldn't take no for an answer. What the hell? We walked into the corridor. During the first recess, students are usually only just starting to wake up, so they don't run down the corridors like herds of horses. Alrighty, Mafia. No problem. Anyway, we could be sure that no one would eavesdrop on us, even by accident. I don't know what kind of story you made up, but you really shouldn't have dragged your mother into this. I have no idea what you're talking about, she replied with a bored expression. Stop it. This isn't a game anymore. You know, I thought better of you. So, did I of you? Whatever. Whatever happened between us, this is going too far. Nobody shoots a cannon at sparrows. Or do you really want to drive me into an early grave? I frowned and stared at her. Catherine didn't last long. You have the nerve to accuse me of anything? Her face twitched. Catherine wrapped her arms around herself and looked out the window. You think you're the one having a hard time? Do you know how long I've been blaming myself? Do you have any idea how hard it was for me? Her voice was getting louder and louder. And you just dumped me for her. Catherine was shouting. What? I dumped Catherine for Himitsu? What kind of nonsense was that? Stop pretending. How can you even dare to accuse me of something? Do you want to know what I told my mother? Nothing. Her performance, of course, didn't go unnoticed, but Catherine clearly didn't care. Even though I should have, after everything you two have done for me. Wait, calm down. But she didn't seem to hear me, continuing her outburst even in front of the curious students who had gathered around us. Felt like Catherine wasn't really talking to me, just venting everything she had been pent up inside of her. And I think I was really trying to find some justification for your behavior. I'm such an idiot. So I deserve it. Catherine was crying and swinging her arms. Her long hair was sticking to her face, now wet with tears. She had lost any resemblance to a well-mannered lady. I'd never seen her like this, like a volcano finally erupting. It had been holding back for thousands of years, accumulating fiery fury inside of it. Now it was exploding, covering everything for kilometers around in its scorching lava and ash. I don't know what I did to upset you this much, but you didn't know? She grinned sadly and with effort threw her hands up in the air, apparently tired of her own hysteria. Birds of a feather flock together. That's you two. Can you just explain properly what, in your opinion, I did wrong? You really don't know that's even ironic in a sense, because it means that she succeeded in everything she'd planned. What are you even talking about? I lost myself and snapped into a shout as well. You're so pathetic. Catherine hissed. The Japanese say a person has 3 faces. So then I had never even seen her second. We show our first face to the world, second to our friends and family, and third to no one. Oh, not a bad, not exactly false, huh? Welcome back, Mafia. Welcome back, good to see ya. I'm tired of this guessing game. Thank you. Catherine said hatefully through clenched teeth and returned to the classroom, just to leave it again after a few seconds with her bag. Her farewell look was filled with enough hatred to genuinely terrify me, and I was left in the sole point of interest. What are you all staring at? Show's over. Go away. I think Catherine hates us, Mafia babe, I said sadly and dragged my feet to the classroom. After that scene, my upcoming conversation with Mrs. Winters was probably literally life-threatening. If Catherine's words had been enough for her to come to my place and start threatening me, I don't even want to imagine what she would do now after her daughter had that kind of an outburst. And most importantly, Katya sincerely believed I was guilty of something that couldn't be forgiven. And the last straw for her was what Himitsu did yesterday at the school gate, grabbed at me, showing that I was hers, and Catherine had to keep her hands off. Was it jealousy? Everything could be easily explained by banal jealousy, but not in Catherine's case. There was something else, something she believed completely, without even a shade of doubt. Maybe if I had given her more of my attention. Now I was with Himitsu, so it was pointless to even think about that. My mood was ruined. When I had thought I couldn't get any worse, Ryunosuke-san, Mrs. Winters, Irina, and now Catherine too. I had to tell Himitsu about our talk. She would find out about it sooner or later anyway. In this school, rumors spread fast. Should never think things can't get worse. What do you mean? I didn't have a bento today. We were sitting in a canteen and eating under oversalted udon. Alright, udon are chewy Japanese noodles made from wheat flour, water, and salt, typically served in a simple dashi base broth. Oh, I love udon. Udon good. I mean, sometimes it seems like this is it. You've reached the bottom, and when it does, someone will knock from below. What do you mean, knock from below? How can they if it's the bottom? Oh. Seemed I picked up the habit of sighing all the time from someone with and without reason. Although, unfortunately, I had more than enough reasons recently. So, we never talked. Are you and Himitsu-chan coming together now? I mean, officially? Are we? I think we are. What do you want to know? Well, I'm your friend, and friends don't hide these things from each other. I wondered if anybody had ever told him, though the way he smiles sometimes makes people want to stand up and leave. What difference did it make now? It couldn't be worse. After all, Kyosuke couldn't change my situation in any way, and he had helped me a lot before. Well, you could say we are. And? He said, whispering conspiratorially. He leaned closer, pulling his belly on the table. You've already done the thing, right? You know? Enough. Tapped him short and stood up. The bowl of cold udon was almost full. My classmates kept throwing wary glances at me, all the way until the end of the school that day. The Japanese have this special look, like we don't mean anything bad and won't say it to your face, but we've heard that you're an antisocial person and we're non-verbally letting you know just that. And I wouldn't even care much, but when the majority of the class behaves this way, it starts to feel outright nasty. It was like torture by collective silent condemnation. I wasn't really well integrated into any Japanese social structures, but I had lived by this society's norms and rules for a decade. However, now I had Himitsu, and these trifles meant much less to me. Class was over. I walked down the stairs, changed my shoes, and began to wait. Nico-kun! Himitsu fluttered out of the school like a dove from its cage, giving me a special smile I had never seen before. You're shining like a penny. Just enjoying the good weather and happy that class is over and that we're going home together. Yeah, I barely sat until the end. I'm really hungry. Haven't you had lunch? I have, well, I've tried to, but the cooks get a big fat F for me today. Nico-kun. Himitsu's eyes went round. Sorry for not making you bento today. The only thing missing was a ground deep bow. I smirked in good nature. Come on, it's alright. I'll definitely make you one tomorrow. Sure. All the way home, Himitsu talked about the school festival that was just around the corner. As for me, the closer we came to my place, the more nervous I became. Ryunosuke-san was supposed to talk to me after school, which meant right now. But not while Himitsu was around. Just had to drop by my house first. Alright, so, you stopped at my gate. Are you going to tell me you're busy again? She squinted slyly. And you aren't? Well, she thought for a moment. Nothing urgent, besides I need to make some food for you first. She got me, and I cornered myself too. Yeah, but let's meet in half an hour. My stomach isn't feeling well after that udon. I smiled apologetically. Boo, fine. She smiled merrily and ran to her house. It seemed like I had dodged a bullet. I slowly walked into the yard, stepped into the porch, grabbed the doorknob, and immediately realized something was wrong. It happens. If you live in the same house your entire life, any small difference, sometimes even some sort of unconscious premonition, can be enough to realize that something is wrong. There was someone inside. Mrs. Winters? It was too early for her. Irina? If so, her visit meant nothing good. So suddenly I was pulled away like a doll on invisible thread. I couldn't go in under any circumstances, even on fear of death. I returned to the street and stopped hesitating. The only sensible course of action was to go to Ryunosuke-san. But Himitsu was there. Did I really have a choice, though? Even if she got to know the whole truth, would it make things worse for anyone? Worse than now? Ding dong! The bell at Ito's house sounded like it came right out of a Disney cartoon, like the door was about to be answered by Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And even though the Snow White part wasn't that hard to believe, she also lived together with the evil king. Nico-kun? Contrary to expectations, Himitsu opened the door. Ding dong. I know, right? Evil things are going on. Himitsu opened the door. Did something happen? She seemed to have guessed. No, yes, I need to talk to your father. About what? Can you call him? Himitsu frowned. Nico-kun, something's wrong. It's written on your face. Nikolai. Ryunosuke's son appeared in the hallway. It's okay. We're just going to talk. Go. He told his daughter. But Dad... Go. He said in a firmer tone. Himitsu expressed darkened as she left, giving me an angry look. Her father and I walked into the yard. He waited a minute to ensure that nobody was eavesdropping on us. You look scared. Yes, and I have a reason. I'm sure someone is in my house. Maybe Catherine's mother, or maybe the KGB. Who the hell knows? Did you see them? No, but it's clear anyway. Oh, Nikolai, it's always something with you. With me? Is it my fault? If it was up to me, you promised to help me. Didn't promise anything, and I'm being tired of beating around the bush. When you give me your parents' documents, you will get protection. What? I understood each of his words separately, but my brain was resolutely refusing to put them together. Ryunosuke-san, I don't understand. As you can see, everybody needs those documents, and without them, we can't break this stalemate. We don't have them. God damn it, how many times do I have to say it? Nikolai, you shouting won't help the situation. I was such an idiot. Finally, everything became crystal clear. This was your plan from the very beginning, to use Himitsu one way or the other. Do you think I would just give Himitsu to you? Ha! With you where she is in the most danger? You're a monster! Documents, Nikolai. I never believe you don't have them. Torture me if you will. Except that now I really have them. You're the devil incarnate. Himitsu can't stay with you in the same house for a second longer. I was muttering and staggered to the floor. Where do you think you're going? He tried to grab me by the arm, but in the same moment the whole world seemed to slow down. Adrenaline hit my brain. I easily dodged him and jumped onto the porch. Himitsu! She was in the kitchen cooking dinner. Nico-kun? Her big green eyes were looking at me in surprise. She was holding a knife in the air. The water in the pot was boiling and oil was sizzling in the frying pan. The sound of Ito's steps from behind me made me come to my senses. We need to go, hurry! You little shit! Ryunosuke-san stormed into the house next to me and grabbed me by the collar. Get out of here! Dad! Himitsu shouted and ran to us. I flew at him and caught him on the cheekbone. Ryunosuke-san threw me through the door as hard as he could, and I slid along the corridor, painfully smashing my back on a corner. Dad, stop! Himitsu, go to your room. Dad! This bastard will never set foot in my house again. Nico-kun! She tried to come closer to me, but her father grabbed her firmly by the arm. You know what you need to do? Now get out of here! Ito howled in a voice not his own. I shifted my eyes to Himitsu. He was trying to break free, but somehow sluggishly, as if carried by inertia. What was I supposed to do? Get into a fight with an enemy who was probably stronger than me? Turn tail and run? With difficulty, I stood up on my feet, start pain hitting me in the lower back. Bring the documents and I will continue this conversation, he said in a calmer tone. It was unbelievable how a single person could combine such a strong dislike of me with absolute loyalty to his job. Nico-kun! Himitsu prattled powerlessly, completely ceasing to resist. I'll come back for you, I promise, he said with anguish, cast a last glance at her, and walked outside. Everything was against me here. I couldn't take her with me by force, and couldn't do nothing to oppose Ito, which meant I had to retreat. At least for a time, and to heal my wounds, to restore my strength, and to come up with a plan. But Himitsu's crying face seemed to have been burned onto the inside of my eyelids, and every time I closed my eyes, it haunted me. I went for a walk. Beaten, humiliated, and desperate, I was barely forcing myself to drag my feet. My back felt it was pierced by thousands of little needles every time I moved. Leaned against a light a couple of 100 meters from my house. Fucking red, I hissed in Russian. An old lady looked at me with distrust. It was the same look my classmates had given me after I fought with Catherine at school. What was holding me here, in this country? Even the KGB, it was more of my homeland. Surprisingly, having lived in Japan for 10 years, I felt no more Japanese than when I had come here as a little child. I got used to the country, yes, but the animal that is a human being can get used to anything. However, getting used to and accepting something are not one and the same. I managed to massage my back a bit, starting to think about what to do next. Definitely couldn't go home. Someone was there. And if it was Miss Winters, I didn't have the things she was looking for. So I had only one destination left, Kyosuke's place again. I had read somewhere that real friendship does not come easily. It requires continuous effort. I would mean I was really lucky to have him. Hello? I called Kyosuke from the nearest telephone box. Hi, it's me, but I need a place to stay for the night. He didn't reply right away, clearly thinking about something. Okay, thanks, I'll be there in half an hour. We're back in his room. We're back in the nerd's room, the anime otaku's room with the Princess Nausicaa poster. Precisely 30 minutes later, I was lying spread out like a starfish in the middle of his room. Do you have any ointment for bruises? What happened to you? Hit my back. You hit it, or did someone else? What's the difference? Won't hurt any less either way. I'll look for something. He walked out of the room and I started to contemplate his truly tremendous collection of manga. Some of the names looked familiar, while others meant nothing to me. Kyosuke met me with much enthusiasm, I'd even say coldly. Apparently he was tired of me constantly omitting and concealing things. If kept at it, next time I'd probably have to sleep on the street. I covered my back with a double layer of ointment, and soon felt much better. Often it's enough to just feel better, and then you're happy. Stretch! Happens after hangover as well as after disease. Oof, that was a nightmare. Nick, are you going to tell me what's happening with you? He sat behind the table and gave me a demanding look. The situation is getting worse. I began carefully. Himitsu's father and Catherine's mother are involved. Himitsu-chan? What kind of nonsense is that? I wish it was. He works for Japanese intelligence and has been spying on my parents and now me. A nice inheritance. I smirked, and Catherine's mother needs some documents from me that I don't have. He didn't know about the papers Ichinose had handed over to me. So that's it. Everyone is demanding something from me, and nobody cares what I want. What are you going to do? Well, first, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, as if trying to ventilate my head. I need to get Himitsu out of that house. Are you sure that's the right decision? Kyosuke looked unusually serious. Not saying she's better off in there, but she'll at least be safer. Safer with the person who used his own daughter as bait? He lowered his eyes and didn't reply. Maybe there was some truth into his words, but I'd already gone too far to stop and retreat. Most likely, it was beyond my power at the moment to provide Himitsu with the life she deserved. But would it really be better for her to remain at the mercy of a person like Ito? Occasionally, I considered myself a sociopath, but then what did that make him? Neglecting some social rules, I at least honored family ties and put love above abstract national interest. He's already proven that no one can feel safe around him. Nick, even if it works out, have you even thought about what comes next? Where are you going to live and how? I prefer to handle problems as they come. A flicker of annoyance crossed Kyosuke's face, but he didn't say anything. Look, I'm grateful, I really am, for everything. And not only for this, but for all the years of our friendship. Not really good at giving speeches, you know what I mean. My voice indeed sounded unnatural. And? What? After this speech, you're definitely going to ask me for something. Let all the air out of my lungs. Yeah, I could use money. As much as you can give, I will give it back one day. Damn, we live in an age of advanced capitalism and yet can't buy the most important things. Happy, love, health, even freedom. Maybe it's a matter of price? How much would you give for Himitsu-chan's life? Guess without a hint of irony and squinted. You don't have that much. Right you are. Kyosuke replied good-naturedly, stood up grunting, removed a few volumes of manga from the upper shelf, and took out a small plastic bag from the stash. That's all I have. Handed it to me. So I counted the money. 100,000 yen! Around 700 USD in 1987. Taking inflation into account, this amount of money would get you much more than in current year. Cool. Not that bad for the first while. It would even be enough to rent a 6 tatami room somewhere far from Tokyo. I owe you for life. Come on now. You got embarrassed. We may not see each other again. My friend even sobbed, but I continued right away so that as not to catch his sentimentality. I must take Himitsu away from there. Kyosuke didn't reply for a while, but eventually smiled and said, just when my mom was excited and we planning a brainstorm from our studies. Brainstorm, got it? He leaned on the table and gave me one of those terrible grins of his, clearly expecting and appreciate this resourcefulness. A brainstorm, got it. Got it. I couldn't remember the last time I had waited for night to come with such anticipation. In order to pass time, I actually did homework with him, and again noticed how bad my friend was at his studies. He had increaseth knowledge and creatheth sorrow. Alright, I gotta go. Good luck. I'll need it. Alright, later. See ya. Neighbors used to tell us that merely 10 or 20 years ago, nobody would lock the doors of their houses in our district. They were most likely making it up, but the fences that separate the plots of land served a decorative purpose, if any, and the gates were indeed often left open. Well, this wasn't the most criminogenic of Tokyo's districts. I watched Himitsu's house from behind the corner for a while, but noticed no movement. Maybe the KGB and the corporation were keeping my house under surveillance, but why would they be spying on me? I turned up the collar of my jacket that I had previously borrowed from Kyosuke, started to slowly walk toward the house. I kept with an emblem of a baseball team and a jacket that was clearly too big for me. Could I have chosen a more idiotic outfit? However, the disproportional image of a city doofus was exactly the thing that was making me feel somewhat confident. Keeping my head low, I quickly darted to Himitsu's yard, walked around the house, and hid in the garden. When we were little, she used to get out of her room by climbing down the drain pipe and jumping off of the shed. I grabbed the pebble from the ground and threw it at the window. It made a dull thud, just enough for Himitsu to hear. After some time, she looked out the window. I waved my hands, but Himitsu just turned her head back and forth and closed the curtains. So I had to throw a larger rock. Himitsu! If only it were possible to shout in a whisper. Finally, she noticed me. Nico! I put my finger on my lips and hissed. Shh, shh. Himitsu understood and went quiet. I waved my hand indicating that she should get down. She hesitated for a bit, but then arduously climbed out the window and wrapped her arms around the pipe as if it were a lifeline. I instantly felt that something was off, and I was right. Himitsu tried to climb down the pipe, but immediately fell. I prudently came closer and caught her in my arms. I wouldn't say it was easy, but Himitsu probably weighed no more than 50 kilograms, so I managed to hold her without falling to the grass. Sorry, she said silently when she came to her senses. It used to be easier. I think so. I put Himitsu to the ground. Your dad? He fell asleep in front of the TV. Are you sure? I am. She pouted. All right, we need to go. Where? Somewhere far away from here. Nico-kun, I can't. Himitsu lowered her eyes apologetically. What now? Where would we go? It's silly and childish. So you think that staying here is very smart? Have you already forgotten what he did this afternoon? I understand and I'm not condoning it, but we should find another solution. Maybe we could talk. Talk? I almost shouted. I tried. That's why I came to you today. Because... screw it. Because Catherine's mother had been waiting for me at home, and she threatened me. Her again? Himitsu frowned. It's not about Catherine, it's about her mother. She, as you know, is supposed to be an American diplomat, but in reality, I don't know who she really is. In any case, she wants documents that I don't have. And it doesn't even matter what she needs. What matters is that I was in real danger, and I came to your father because I had no one else to turn to. And you know what happens next. And after all that, you're suggesting I talk to him again? She wasn't replying, just methodically picking at the earth with the tip of her shoe. Come on, Himitsu, this isn't a joke. Who knows what we'll get into his head next. Nico-kun, he's still my father. You don't think that... I don't know what to think. Fine. She raised her tearful eyes to me. I'll talk to him, and if it doesn't work out... But, don't worry, everything will be alright. She stood on the tiptoes and kissed me. My intense desire to prove that I was right evaporated at once. Tomorrow, I'll drop by. I'm staying at Kyosuke's place. It's too dangerous at home. Then I'll call him. I looked at Himitsu closely, but just couldn't figure out what to do. Out she looked unexpectedly confident, and her big, green, unblinking eyes seemed to be looking right into my soul. Hey, her eyes are blinking. What's going on here? Do you know his phone number? I finally gave up and sighed. Of course. Well then. Wanted to say be careful, but decided it would sound appropriate in the situation. After all, she was home. I returned to Kyosuke's place after midnight. So cute, I know. Himitsu is still the cute. His mom looked sleepy and not too happy when opening the door, but seemed to believe that I had just forgotten an important notebook at home. Kyosuke wasn't really surprised by my return, but didn't comment on it. Just only saying a standard, I told you. The hard futon, the snoring right above my ear, and my only thoughts didn't let me fall asleep for a long while. 30. When you're just woken up and haven't opened your eyes yet, especially in those first few seconds, it might seem that while you were sleeping, someone carried you to another place. Usually there's a vague feeling of something being wrong, like a painting you look at every morning being slanted. It's only for a few degrees off, but that's enough for you to notice the geometrical imperfection. Said wrongness doesn't have to be exposed in something tangible. For example, it can also be the same white ceiling you stare at every time you appear out of dreamland. The very sensation of something being not as it should be, as it should is enough. It's exactly what I was feeling now. So I was in the Kyosuke's room. The clock read 6 in the morning, and my head was pounding as if a woodpecker were locked inside. I tried not to think about the pain and distract myself. What had happened yesterday? Himitsu, her father, that uninvited guest? It seemed strange that I had been afraid to enter my own house and retreated without any objection, like an old lion banished from its pride. That was exactly the reaction they had expected from me. Catherine's mother, because it proved that her threats had worked. Ito, because he left me with no choice but to give him non-existent documents. Maybe Irina, too. After all, I made an agreement for the same documents with her. And since then, I have been behaving exactly the way I thought I would. I was sure nobody expected any surprises from me. Excuse me. Which meant that the idea came to me in a fraction of a second. Unstoppable like the flash of a pulsar, immense like intergalactic space, and unclear like the source of a wow signal. Radio signal detected on August 15th by Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope in the United States. Then used to support the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The signal appeared to come from the direction of the constellation of Sagittarius and bore the expected hallmarks of extraterrestrial origin. So there's aliens out there! Maybe. But in order to evaluate it and think it through, I needed much more time. The terrible snoring reaching me from the bed wouldn't let me remain horizontal any longer, so I got up and walked to the restroom on my tiptoes. Kyosuke's mother had already woken up and was cooking breakfast. What a burden for this woman to take care of two fully grown brats. She definitely have something to talk about with Himitsu. These thoughts make me feel uncomfortable, and I mumbled awkwardly, "Good morning." She just looked at me, surprised, and replied that she wasn't expecting us to get up so early. But Kyosuke wasn't even thinking about that. He was splattered unnaturally on his bed, and judging by the smirk on his face, was busy dreaming. "Get up!" I shouted in his ear. "Ah!" Kyosuke jumped up from the bed and looked about in shock. "What?" "I know what we need to do." "Do what?" I need a car." "Car? What car?" "Wake up already." It took a while before his cloudy eyes focused on me. "Nick, come on, it's 6 a.m. I don't get up this early even ever." "It's a matter of life and death." "Fine." He grumbled, got up with a grunt, and put on his trousers and glasses, all the while scratching his belly, which hung almost to his knees. "Ready to listen?" "Yeah, like I have a choice." So I came up with an idea of how to get out of this situation, and I need your help. At this stage specifically, I need your car. "Nick, today's only Wednesday. We still need to go to school." "The hell do you mean school? It's a matter of life and death." The look on Kyosuke's puffy face, I could see he was thinking it through. "How am I supposed to explain it to my mom?" "Leave it to me." "I don't mean to doubt your resourcefulness, but let me remind you that this school is basically your holy cow." Then we'll just say we need the car for school." Persuading his mom turned out to be a difficult task indeed. I lied shamelessly about going to a museum in a part of Tokyo with no trains or public transport. Thinking about it, it was weird someone like Kyosuke was trusted with a real car. The old Toyota was more or less his age, but still. As soon as he turned 18, Kyosuke passed his driving test and was solemnly giving the key to the old lady, although he didn't really have that many places to go. So most of the time he gathered dust in their garage. "I told you it would be a piece of cake." "I don't know, Nick." I told Kyosuke the details of my plan. "Don't sweat it. Nobody is even going to see you. You'll just leg it out of there." "Don't you mean wheel it?" "No, I mean leg. Never mind." I sighed. Anyway, if the dictionary had a definition of bad idea, it'd use your plan as an example. Do you have a better one? No. So at 9 o'clock we were on the road. The morning traffic had already started to thin, but Kyosuke was only barely managing to drive, constantly losing his clutch and switching gears uncertainly. Even a rookie driver could single out a car like that. They were following me. We parked in an alley not too far from my house. "Alright, did you get everything I said?" Yeah. Just wait for me here, and don't fuss." "Yeah, good luck." Kyosuke looked unusually serious and focused. Wrinkles would occasionally cross his wide, glossy forehead, as if someone were tapping jelly with a spoon. He just nodded silently and got out of the car, trying not to slam the door. As expected, nobody was waiting for me at home. I carefully examined all the rooms and the garden, but there wasn't a soul in there. Maybe I just had been imagining things yesterday, although that didn't matter for what I was about to do. It seemed like Ito had gone to work already, and that gave me confidence. Finally, I approached the telephone and pointlessly stared at it for a few minutes. We rarely think about how inventions like the telephone, TV, radio, and computer had changed our lives. We're too used to them and forget what life was like without them. Only 100 years ago, humans were doing perfectly fine, without any of these technological miracles. Moreover, 1,000 years ago, humankind existed well enough without even the basic blessings of civilization, the steam engine, printing press, and penicillin. 100,000 years ago, the ancestors of Homo sapiens weren't much different from other species of ape. Probably didn't think that generations later, the descendants would conquer the atom, overcome gravity, and desperately fight each other for the non-existent secrets of long-dead people. I took out the telephone book, slowly flipping through the pages, grabbed the receiver, and dialed the number of my grandparents back in the USSR. And again, the only sound I could hear was those strange beeps from a distant telephone thousands of kilometers from me. I wonder if it was snowing there already. But then the receiver went silent, and the silence was broken by frequent dial tones. Number was not available. Please call later. I dialed the number again and again until I was completely confident that the people who were supposed to receive their signal understood it. The wait was excruciating. It seemed like nobody was going to come, and I shouldn't even have tried. It would only irritate the KGB. But about half an hour later, someone gently knocked at the door. It took quite an effort to not run over and not open it immediately. I had to at least pretend to be calm. Someone knocked again, this time a bit louder. Finally, I walked to the door and confidently swung it open. Uh-oh. Just as I expected, Irina was standing at the doorstep. Thank God, went through my mind. You called? She smiled nicely. Has anyone seen you? Who was supposed to see me? I jerked my head in the direction of Himitsu's house. If you play your cards right, you'll never have to worry about that ever again. Yeah, come in already. I still couldn't figure out how to address her, in casual or polite form. Irina took her shoes off, walked into the kitchen, looked around, and nonchalantly sat at the table, crossing her legs. You got a nice place. Hope you aren't here just to look at my house. One thing doesn't exclude the other. Too luxurious a place for a single. She was clearly trying to pick a fitting word and not offend me at the same time. For a single person, too much empty space, impractical. Are you going to dispossess me of my property, or will we just cut to the chase? Irina scoffed with displeasure, but immediately grew focused and seemed to strain every muscle in her body. Even her face came to resemble a wax mask, solely intended to show how serious this conversation was. Before we even start, I need to make sure that nobody saw you, because Himitsu, I was stumbling over my words and was clearly nervous. The collar of my shirt was choking me, even though it wasn't buttoned fully, and my nape was sweating. Don't worry, nobody saw me. And your agents? What agents? I presume you haven't come here alone. Am I in danger here? She squinted, studying me attentively. I was suddenly much less confident. Of course she was just a woman, but she was also a KGB agent. Sambo, karate, hand-to-hand combat? I had no idea what martial arts she knew, but it was too late to back out now. Irina was sitting across from me, 2 meters away, waiting for me to hand over these damn documents. I think the job of an intelligence officer is dangerous by default. I took a couple of steps toward her, especially in a foreign country and undercover. It's stressful. Wouldn't you like some tea? No. She seemed to realize that I was up to something, but couldn't figure out what it was. I'm going to have some. I tried with every motion to appear as if I was just walking to the stove to put the kettle on. But as I was passing by Irina, I quickly crouched down and pulled her arms behind the back of the chair. What are you doing? There was no time to respond. I prepared for the tape in advance. I took it out of my pocket and firmly tied Irina's hands. Stood up and with an awful sound tore off about half a meter of tape. If you scream, I'll tape your mouth. Go to... She had to understand my words were an empty threat. A couple of minutes later, KGB agent Irina Mostovaya was sitting in my kitchen taped up and speechless. Damn, Nikolai, you really went for it. But it was only the beginning. I ran to my room, grabbed a bag from the floor, returned to the kitchen, and approached Irina from behind. I dropped the bag to the floor and poked the girl in the back with a stick I found earlier in the garden. I didn't much care if it felt like a real gun or not. What matters is that she believed that she was in real danger. Now we're going for a little ride. Do exactly as I say and nothing bad will happen to you. I pulled her off the chair and with a single jerk, surprised by how easy it was to do. Dragging Irina along, I walked to the garden, squeezing through the gap in the fence. I found myself in the narrow alley between plot of lands. The woman was barely resisting and obediently dragged herself along. For a moment, it even made me wary, but I waved the thoughts away and focused on the next part of my plan. Before we walked onto the street, I took a piece of cloth and blindfolded her. Irina was mumbling something, but it didn't stop me. I know, isn't this crazy, Mafia babe? Got some crazy flippin' stuff going on. Progress became difficult, and I pushed her in front of me. There it was, Kyosuke's car. As soon as he noticed us, he quickly got out of the driver's seat and rushed to help me. Together we managed to stuff her into the trunk, and I checked again to see if her hands were tied firmly and if her mouth was taped properly. You sure she didn't see me? Kyosuke asked me nervously when we got in the car. Sure as can be. I was much more concerned that Irina would start kicking the metal of the trunk, which would look weird to say the least. Well, we tell the police we're bringing a naughty dog to the vet. Of course, someone might have noticed the tied-up girl who was, clearly against her will, walking along with a young, large man, but the risk was inevitable. Actually, you know what? Give me the rope. I tied Irina's arms and legs well enough to make a shibari master jealous. Binding her, tying in most contexts, style of decorative bondage, tight binding, beauty of tight binding, Japanese style of bondage, tying a person up using simple yet visually intricate patterns. Okay, cool. Now it's all good. Nevertheless, Kyosuke still looks scared. Oh, I don't like this idea at all, Nick. It's too late to check it out. Let's go. He sighed deeply and ran the engine. Every time we passed a police car, it felt like my heart was sinking to my shoes. I was throwing glances at Kyosuke occasionally. He was sweating, breathing heavily, and his face had turned purple red. That's how amateurs get caught. Only a blind man would miss their anxiety. But in the dense flow of cars, our old Toyota didn't stand out at all. There was a gorgeous yellow Porsche in front of us, its driver talking on the phone. To the right was a ridiculous-looking Isuzu truck, fully loaded with hay. Whoever needs so much hay in the city? It was clearly more suspicious than a couple young fellows in an old car, millions of them on the streets of Tokyo. Finally, we left the busy highway and the rest of our ride was pretty uneventful. Irina was unusually silent. A couple of times I even wanted to stop and check if she hadn't fallen out on the way. I didn't know if choosing Kyosuke's country home to interrogate her was a good idea, but I simply had no other options. We quickly covered the walls of the garage with black cloth we had bought in advance, took out the furniture and other stuff, and put a chair in the middle of the room. Of course, it didn't look like a KGB torture chamber, but I wasn't trying to inspire any nostalgic in Irina. You're tied up now. And there she was, the major of Soviet intelligence tied to a chair, fully at my mercy. Kyosuke stood guard outside, but the nearest houses were too far for anyone to hear us. Whatever had happened inside this garage, didn't expect this, did you? I carefully pulled the tape off her face. Now we can talk on my terms. Do you really think you'll get away with this? Irina screwed her face into an angry grimace. What do you plan to do next? If I don't return to the embassy, they'll start looking for me, and they know that I went to your house. I think you've mistaken me for the man with something to lose. So what next? Are you gonna lock me up here, or... Her eyes flared up, and I barely suppressed my urge to look away. That entirely depends on you. Going to be honest, I don't and never have had any of Ito's documents. I knew it, she said quietly, biting her lip. But that doesn't mean I don't have any documents. I had to learn about the ballistic missiles somehow, right? Hope you don't think I just guessed. So I do have some documents on the project. And I'm supposed to just take your word for it? No. Why? Showed her a list of papers from those very documents, the most interesting ones in my opinion. Well, guys, I think it is time. Calculations for firing 100 tons of payload in orbit. Rena studied the rows of numbers and figures for a while. Enough! Yep, as she said, that's enough, guys. Let's save the game right here, right in this file. And, next week we will play even more of this game. Oh, there's so much of it, guys. The story's big. Big. Let's see what improvements we have. More music that we never got. Even more backgrounds. Hey, we got all the backgrounds here. But there's still quite a few left. And of course, CG. There's still a lot missing here too. But yeah, we're getting some. We're getting some more. Here's some more. There's a couple here. But yep, we're not done with Himitsu's story plot just yet. But yeah, thank you for coming, guys. Hope you had a good time. Tomorrow will be more Among Us, so look forward to that. But thanks for coming, have a great day, and I'll see you all later for some Chrono Cross. Bye!